We did yoga as underground in very filthy places because it's also you can be arrested. I'm a medical doctor. I saw many naked people. All people have the same structure. They have the same internal and external organs. But they belong to different religions.
I feel a big part of the angst, the anxiety that we feel as Maltese people is that we don't really understand where our roots are.
All dictators are immature personalities that sort of in compensations of their pain, internal pain, they develop some masks, some personas that they hide behind.
Okay, you just threw like 3 or 4 bombs and I'm wondering which one I should follow.
Bil-defaw najdu kelma l-baz Mill-wahda neħbu t-nejn Nifmux dwar x'qed irednu Nistaqsu kifu x'fatta u fejn Il-barra s-saġġar Fuq il-barra s-saġġar
Mela, tlaqna? Merba fl-studio miegħi llum għandi Lidia Babenko li magħha ħanetħattu dwar ħafna affarijiet, il-konxu, il-persona, ħafna ħwejs għandhom x'jaqsmu mal-psikoloġija, ħankellmu dwar Jung, trauma, l-Knisja, l-meditazzjoni. Hija taħdida vasta li tikkonċerna ħafna il-kundizzjoni umana. Qabel ma nibdew nixtieq infakkar li hawn ta' azzjendi li ngħiduna l-appoġġ u allura nirrakkomanda li intom fejn tistgħu tagħmlu użu mill-prodotti u s-servizzi tagħhom dawn huma il-Hungry Hippie, il-Browns, il-Vinja Capricci ta' Abram li jipprovdu dan il-whisky delicious, il-Maypro li nfakkar kull nhar ta' sibt filgħodu ġewwa l-ħwienet kollha tagħhom ikollhom is-sourdough b'tomiet varji però d-dumux għax jinħatfu malajr. Il-National Book Council li se jtalla l-Festival tal-Ktieb bejn 18 u 22 ta' Ottubru aħna ħankunu hemm. Grazzi lil Garmin kif ukoll id-Derek Meets 998-6425 Apex Media tax-xogħol straordinarju qed jagħmlu fuq l-SEO tagħna. Grazzi wkoll il-Kutriko, il-Likebs kif ukoll il-Ferrara Casa. Patreon.com/John Maliek tixtiequ tkunu parti minn din il-komunità meraviljuża li tinkludi wkoll il-Julian. Do with that what you will. Tlaqna fuq in-naħa l-oħra ta' dan il-podcast, ta' dan l-introduzzjoni, jien u Lidia Babenko. Listen, are we rolling?
Yes.
We're rolling, okay. So, Lidia, welcome. For the people that don't know your work and don't have your background, could you just give us like a brief biography?
Yeah. So I belong to the Slavic tribe. So I'm from Russia. My father is Ukrainian. And I came to Malta 26 years ago.
1 second. Olila naqrax in my headphones. You guys are hearing her okay outside? Low, right? So just give her some boost.
Can you test, please?
Okay.
Test.
All right, let me get a bit
Test.
closer.
Closer. Test,
Yeah.
test. Like this better. Test. So should I speak
fantastic,
louder?
fantastic. No, you should be comfortable the whole while. Don't think
Comfortable,
about your
okay.
voice. We'll deal with
Okay, so like this is fine.
like that is absolutely, from my end, it's perfect. I don't know how you guys. All right, we've got to go ahead. So Slavic tribe. Your dad is Ukrainian?
My dad is Ukrainian. My
Okay.
mother is half Belarusian, half Russian.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so it's a typical Slavic tribe. And so it's not different, no better, no worse tribe than anyone else. And so I came to Malta 26 years ago. It was quite a mysterious story. We spoke a bit about it, so it will be maybe another time of talk. So I'm a medical doctor by my education. Graduated in Moscow Medical Academy, specialized in psychiatry, practice in psychiatry in a psychiatric regional hospital. And after a few years...
How long did you do that for, the practice in psychiatry?
4 years. So after the university, so it was 10 years of preparation, then it was 4 years of work.
Okay, so 10 years, but it's not 10 years to become a medical doctor, right? It's 10 years to become like a GP and a psychiatrist, and then 4 years of actually...
And then together with 10 years, so it's another 4 years, so it took around 14 years.
Right.
So, and it was a time of a big transformation. It was the beginning of 1990.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've been already the adult in that time.
I was, in my mind, I was an adult. I was 7.
Okay. So, but I belong to the generation of 1960s.
Right.
So it's the generation of the pioneering and the generation of revolution in the science, in spiritual path. It was a generation of hippie, if you remember.
Of
So
course.
it was a lot of transformations in the music. So I belong to this strange generation. And becoming to be the doctor and the scientist, so the mind was always looking for the truth.
My dad was born in 52, and he says in the 60s, it's like we finally got color.
Exactly.
It's like the world was in black and white, and then the 60s happened, and the Beatles happened, and psychedelia and Woodstock and everything else, and all of a sudden from just like everything literally being black, gray, brown, to all of a sudden mandalas everywhere, psychedelic colors everywhere.
Yeah.
Music was, even like the way people performed. Like I'm very much into my music. So you see people being on stage and they're very conscious of themselves. And then you have, Jimi Hendrix all of a sudden. It's a bit later, but
Yeah.
he's a product of that. So
But-
I'm a bit curious about,
Yeah.
because you mentioned your tribe, right? And you also kind of underlined this, and it's just as good or a bad as tribe as any, but it's a tribe. But the fact that you are from that tribe, you're a product of that tribe. What does that? How does that inform who you are for you?
So I mentioned about it because today we are touching very deep connection to the human subconsciousness, and human subconsciousness very much connected to the culture. And Gustav Jung is one of my formal teacher, because of course only from his books, and I was lucky to meet his student Stan Grof in Russia after the perestroika opened the door, because mind you, even belonging to the generation of 1960, what you mentioned, we've been blocked from that.
Of course, yeah.
So we do not know Jimi Hendrix, we do not know psychedelics. We know only the Communistic Party. We sometimes was listening the Voice of America.
Was that the Voice of America? Is that like
it's a radio station with a lot of influences, so you cannot clear it properly, and for that you can be arrested. So we did yoga as underground in very filthy places, because it's also you can be arrested. Everything.
What was their problem with yoga?
With yoga, because it's not incongruency with the idea of the Communistic Party, and so it's some religion influences, and religion equal the opium.
Right. So up until the 90s, that was still a powerful belief for the Communist Party, that all religion was to be frowned upon?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So our churches, our monasteries have been misused for the public toilets, for the storage places.
Wow.
A lot of.
What do you feel that does to a community?
It's actually desacralize the deep cultural and folk level of the traditions. So. Where people are coming, where the roots are. It's in their traditions, in their folk, in their songs, in their way, their attitude towards each other, the food preparation. So there is a tradition. Every culture has their own traditions.
Yeah.
It's like our mother traditions. So every mother have in the kitchen her own rules. So you are coming to the mother and you feel relaxed, because there is you know what to expect, and you feel good about it.
So obviously this is a very interesting part many of our parts of this conversation are very interesting to me. But this part is also something I'm keen to kind of understand further and explore further, because I feel a big part of the angst, the anxiety that we feel as Maltese people is that we don't really understand where our roots are, what our tribe actually is. We went through being colonized several times over. There's these huge monolithic temples on our territory that are not ours, but somehow they're part of our identity. We've been free or independent for 50 years, or I'll probably get that number wrong, but very recently. And now we're supposed to kind of take the country in a direction, but I feel like we haven't understood who we are, so we don't know what to do. Right? So maybe if we can just, for the sake of the conversation, maybe a few specifics of what your tribe gave you, like in a bit more kind of detail of how kind of this has perhaps affected your subconscious, you think?
Well, my grandma lives in the sort of borderline between Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. And she was a healer in the village, and she healed from many different disorders, included the snake poison, included serious condition. She used prayers, she used special spells with herbs. Most of the time it was it have a Christianic way. However, because we have no religion, so atheism was our religion, everything was very secretly done. And I remember being a child, so she was taking me to the forest to recognize some plants, medicinal plants, and I heard her prayer when I twisted my leg, or I fall on something, or I have some problems with my head or with my tummy. So I saw how she treated other people, and it's like it's my resource. My resource. Of course, later on, when I choose medical path, she sort of have been alive. However, I've been a bit brainwashed. So I was so proud to be a scientist that I didn't recognize it as a treasure. So I refused to learn from her. But later on, when she already passed away, I started to receive her messages in my dreams.
Okay.
And so this is actually navigate me towards the psychiatry and the psychology, because I realized that there is much, much beyond of human brain, of human thoughts. So what is this? The world of the dreams. And actually, Gustav Jung, he spoke a lot about it, in contradictory of his own teacher, Freud. So he developed sort of another aspect. It's a mystical aspect. It's a spiritual aspect. That's what your friend, the Father Martin, used when what he mentioned. It's an essential part of the religion. So the religion must be alive. We have to be involved into the essence of the spirituality. The spirituality, the essence of religion.
Okay, let me just kind of crystallize a few of the things you said, and kind of we're going to walk it a bit slowly, because I'm realizing we're throwing terms out there like the subconscious, for example, and we haven't really explained that, and there are people out there who perhaps have never interfaced with the term itself. So I'll start by kind of being very, very, very candid with you. So personally, I've, as you know, I've had like the holotropic experience. I'm the type of person that like writes down my dreams. I've done this for years, and I try to kind of string it together and to understand what's going on with me, and they've been very helpful. There are times when, especially when I'm doing a lot of meditation, where I feel like my intuition is really, really, really well honed. However, where I started to kind of be a bit apprehensive is once I start to try to imagine if this is beyond my brain, right? If it's my mind having parts of it which I just don't know, don't understand. Like science is still years and years away, and they haven't mapped out as much as perhaps they're telling us they've mapped out, or maybe they're honest about it. I don't know. So for me, that is kind of the hard part to, like, I don't know what the term mystical actually means. If it's something that is supernatural, I'm not really, I can't for sure say yes, that's it. But if it's like parts of me that I know nothing about and that I can just like interface with, like through intuition or through the dreams, or through just like writing freely, for example, I think there is a lot we really have no idea about. So let's start with a few definitions. So correct me wherever I'm wrong, and I'm probably going to be wrong multiple times tonight. But the first thing I want to kind of elucidate is that kind of Jung says there's basically two parts to the brain. Like the conscious part, the part that I know about and that I show other people, kind of like my ego and then my persona that I choose, and then the subconscious part, right? Which is the part that even I don't know exists almost unless I really go in and kind of, with the help of people like yourself, go in there and kind of search for it, right? Mm-hmm. So let's start there. Maybe you want to explain to us this model of the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and so on and so forth.
So, look, talking about the world of what I just mentioned, mystic, I'm still the scientist. So it's not because I neglected what I'm studying, but sort of I'm seeing my role into the position to bridge unknown together with the known, to bridge the dryness of modern science and the richness of what you call subconscious culture.
Right.
And so mystic, it means it's belong to the field what is not yet related to our conscious level.
Okay.
You mentioned that we have two kinds of brain. We still have the same kind of brain, but we have a different kind of mind. We have a conscious mind.
See, I told you I was going to make a lot of mistakes.
It's okay, we're discussing, so it's not your subject. Awesome. So subconscious mind takes much bigger place. And we just discussed with your assistant, Kale, downstairs. She asked me the question, is it true that we use only a small part of our brain? Yes, it's true. Nowadays, in our epoch of what we are living now, so our brain is not used much. And there is still not enough understanding, even on scientific level, is our brain as an acceptor, a receiver, or a producer.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah.
So we still in this dichotomy of so we do not understand the answer. Not one scientist will tell you exactly what is this, because our brain is a acceptor, the receiver, and also can produce what we are receiving and what we are producing. So we still in a lot of enigma. Saying that, we still have some material, some solid material, what we can repeat with our experiments, like what, for example. We can see that human mind have particular patterns, and that patterns are repeatable. And these patterns are repeatable, doesn't matter people want to repeat them or not. For example, I have clients for psychotherapy. They think, whatever I do not want that, but I'm always attracted to similar kind of people. Yeah. Or I always have the situation. It's repeating and repeating. So it's just shown that we are inside of some pattern, in some program, if you want to say. So it's like you were always in a podcast of John. So we're never out of this podcast. So we're
not a bad deal.
It's not a bad deal. Yes, but maybe sometime we need to go to the podcast of, I don't know, Clara Juice. Yes, so just to break the pattern.
Sure.
You understand me?
Yes. And so, from my understanding, the unconscious mind is the part of me that I don't know is kind of like a part of me, but is having huge influence on my life.
Huge.
Which is why I wind up making the same mistakes, losing my temper at the same things, I don't know, just destroying relationships that in a similar way, like I just did the last one when I promised myself I wouldn't do that. So is that correct, first of all?
Yes, it's absolutely correct. And the psychologist will tell you that the conscious mind is sort of trying to manage, but subconscious mind is ruling. So
Right.
we will be in this automatism of repeating and repeating similar pattern.
Right.
Until, so if there is a chance to move out of that trap, so of course it is. It's when we find the way how to conscious about this pattern, and what is actually protecting the pattern, what is crystallizing this pattern. Why couldn't we in our normal life just simply realize it and say, oh, like I drink coffee, so I have a tummy problem, so it's straight away I will not have a coffee. Why couldn't I do the same with my psychological pattern? Because we do not understand the root of that. Maybe some time ago, this particular pattern was a surviving mechanism for you.
Right. Okay.
And your mind is connected to that pattern and use it as a surviving mechanism. You do not need any more. But the mind have this habit. So it's driving without your consciousness. This is why in nowadays, many places, rejuvenation centers, yogas, what is the purpose for that? To bring people into the level of conscious mind, of being. Yeah, we're saying mindful. What
Yeah.
is the mindful? So when you understand what is going on with you, when you are not just automatically doing things,
Yeah.
you're not just every morning standing up and going to your job, so you're driving your car,
Yeah.
you are very disciplined, you are very structured, and so even though you do not have life, you do not have a joy, because in the evening to relax you need to drink or to smoke some particular substances or to do sometimes very stupid things
Yeah.
for yourself just to break this tension.
Right.
So that is the problem for our society. The same time, we have the techniques that help us to connect to this part of our mind and to realize it. And so that's the story. This is where Stan
Yeah.
Grof came out and etc.
So I've had plenty of experience with things like mindfulness, meditation, flotation tanks, and actually, I'm going to exclude flotation tanks from that list because that was a very particular, very different type of experience. But when I've done mindfulness, particularly when it's much more kind of secular, I guess, it's just a calming agent for me, where I realize that my brain is perhaps excessively energetic and not energetic in a focused way. Maybe it's spreading its energy across too broad a bandwidth, and I'm wasting my capacity for productivity. So when I do mindfulness, in that case, it would just be a case of me sitting down, observing the darkness behind my eyelids, for example, for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. But I've never kind of peered into my subconscious in the way that I have when I've done holotropic breathing, for example. Or in the way when, now I hate poetry, but sometimes I write poetry purely to see what's going on, like in the back room. I don't enjoy it, I don't read it back, but I found that kind of helps. And also dreams tend to tell you many things that are going on in the machinery. So, where do you think we should go from here? Do you think we should analyze kind of the two main parts, which are like what we present to people and like how we interface with the world, or perhaps the more interesting stuff is what's going on in the back, the shadow, the archetypes, and so on.
Yeah, I feel that a bit unclosed question of you about Maltese. So I have something to
Fair point,
say.
yep.
To say, because in Malta I discovered quite interesting persona, and it's actually maybe not persona, but it's a conscious being. Unfortunately, he has already passed away, French talarp from Gozo. And so I made the memory of him, of his, through my client. So they told me that it was a healer, and he had an amazing experience, spiritual experience, and he'd been healing people with the plant and with the prayer. Of course, I was very curious about that. And I went there, and I really feel that there is a museum, probably you know the place, yes, in Arp.
Yes.
So what do I mean by mentioning him? You have your Maltese deep traditions. You have your own folk medicine. You have your own language. With all these colonizations and with all this trouble what Malta passed through, somehow with your strengths, and I deeply respect that Maltese people. So with the strengths, the nation survived, saved the language even. Though I know that it was the language was repressed for some years, so people was punished if they speak in Maltese language, in the school especially. So still, you saved the language and you kept your authenticity. So I maybe disagree that you couldn't find yourself, because there are sort of many aspects, if you will look deeper for that. Even the way of Catholicism in Malta, you can find that it have a lot of paganism. Like, for example, Christianity will never, the strict Christianity will never move the statues around. It's a typical paganism ritual. And to carry the statues, it's not a Christian tradition.
Right.
However, people believe that it makes big sense and deep meaning. And probably it is. If people believe for that, people will not believe just for nothing. So there is a meaning, and most probably it was some result. Yeah. And so this identification of this small aspect of culture, your Anya, yes, the folk songs, kept a lot of history about Malta, what was really happened, not just by official history, this Malta experience, So what knights did, how they been good. They wasn't good for Malta at all. We will not go to that subject, but it was a lot of harm for Maltese tradition, for the peacefulness of the island. However, it also have a aspect of positive aspect. So if it's help to develop, it's help to
the knights. You mean yes?
The knights,
yes, from a let's say an economic standpoint, from an architectural standpoint, and from a systemic standpoint, I think there was a lot of benefit. Yeah. But I'm sure, as things were at the time, like when the colonizers were seeing the people they colonized as almost non-human in some cases.
Sure, and it was very hard because people have been killed. And they've been humiliated badly. Women was raped. However, the nation still saved the authenticity. And I always telling in a conversation with Maltese, if the nation can have a lot of self-humor, self-skepticism, it's a very healthy mental condition of the nation.
Yeah, I think we have a fairly good relationship with self-deprecation. I think we can tell jokes about ourselves a fair bit. I think what concerns me is that, so for example, when it comes to the architecture that most of which we've inherited, but somehow we still associated a lot with our identity. A lot of that is getting lost and getting replaced by buildings that have no character, like no identity, and that is just like one way in which I feel the collective Maltese mind is expressing itself in the world, and that's kind of by building these huge blocks of concrete that crush the landscape. And for me, that's a very dramatic image, and it's an image of a country that has lost its touch with its identity. And it's whitewashing it with these structures that have no character.
Look, the architecture, the technique, technology, it's something on the top, on the surface. But the most important is the cultural roots. So save the roots. That is.
Is there kind of assets? No, assets is the word. Well, parts of the culture that you could point to that you think are part of the roots. Like, for example, language. I would assume
language
is very deep.
It's very deep, and so I'm very much involved into the Indian philosophy, spiritual philosophy, and for me it was a big discovery that the mother's name in Maltese is Ommi.
Yeah, Om.
Yeah, so Om, so it was like wow. Yeah. In Sanskrit, Om is the beginning of the beginning, the source of everything. Yeah. So, and if we will go deeper and deeper, there is a good book of Natasha. You have a Serbian woman here for a long time. So she make the book about the investigation of Maltese language in parallel with Sanskrit. I really recommend. I forgot the name of this book, and I will send you the connection.
Yes, please.
So why I'm touching this subject? Because you sort of it's lead us.
Is it Natasha Pantovic?
Natasha Pantovic, yeah.
There you go, founder.
Gotcha!
Okay, so we're just going to throw that link into the description so people can find.
She lives in Malta for a long time, I think 30 years. And she really built up the yoga awareness here. She's a great yogi, so she adopted 2 children from Africa, and she is an absolutely amazing soul. And at the same time, she has this curious mind, and so she has a lot to share. And she wrote this book. So recommend you to read.
And what do you think we would learn when people go in to find that book?
The value, the authenticity and the value of your language, because it sounds like like Maltese language. Devaluation of the culture is the biggest problem. It's not the architecture, it's not the technology, but devaluation of the culture, devaluation and desacralization of the archetype of a mother and a father. So desacralization of the cultural traditions, that is the problem, not the technology.
So now we're going to need some more definitions. So desacralization and the archetype of the mother and the father. If you can just,
explain,
give a bit of background on that.
Yeah. So if we're talking about Jung, in his idea of the archetype, what actually his theory started to develop just after the First World War.
Sure.
And now, for some reason, the modern psychology saying it's something what is not proven, what is not ready yet. Psychology is not a science that is proven, you can prove, because it's about human mind. Nothing can be proven. However, so this idea of the archetypes came to his understanding just after the First World War. And so his basic, but before that, it's not actually his original idea. The archetypes came from the Plato, the great philosopher Plato, what we use as an authoritarian figure for culture, for geography, for history. So he was the first who discovered that human races, that doesn't matter which culture, have different figures that people sort of following. Yeah. What are these figures? It's the archetype of a mother, child, archetype of a father, archetype of anima and animus. Yes, but now people talking a lot about divine femininity, divine masculinity. It's all addressed to the Gustav Jung awareness, who bring it like integrate the ideas of Plato.
Okay, so let's study the archetypes a bit further. So, what is the job of the archetype in a society? And and perhaps we can just start from, when Jung kind of got his hands on it, because Plato and the idea you were talking about Plato and the ideals, right? Where you had these figures.
Yes,
but
yes.
with the Jungian archetypes. How did Jung see the role in our psyche of the archetype? Is archetype something that is there for me to aspire to, or is the archetype something that I see in society and immediately want to follow the warrior, or want to protect the child, or is it both those things?
Look, now there are many more and more evidence from the scientists, from the biologists like Sheldrake, and there is a huge theory of the noosphere. It's like the mental sphere of academic Vernadsky, and so it's a theory of the biofield. The field of consciousness that is beyond just individuals. And in this field, what is this field? Probably it's electromagnetic. It's like our library.
Right.
What we produce generation by generation.
Right.
And it's like a model. It's like the child is born, and who this child will see. If the child will see the dark, it will follow the dark. In the story of the Mowgli, so the Mowgli follows the wolf. So if you see this particular mother, woman with the particular characters, and man with this particular characters, so of course you will see them as the example.
Right.
And probably you because you have children, I know, and maybe you notice that when they've been young, very young, they copied. I saw when a little child walking with his nanos, and he's trying to copy the way of walking of the nanos. So because children are like that. So for archetype, first of all, it's the model. It's the model. Now this archetype, you can call it shallow archetype, but it already exists. It's like a Superman, the battle man,
Like Spider-Man and all of these.
Spider-Man, all these heroes, Tom and Jerry. Who
Is Tom and Jerry considered an archetype? So archetype is anything that we emulate?
It's like a model,
It's a model. Okay.
Like a model.
I would think that there are some archetypes that are better than others.
Sure.
Is that correct? Or?
Absolutely, yes.
That is correct.
There are, but it's still the model. It's actually neutral, but it's our human mind have to put the value on that. So sacralize it or desacralize it. Like what, for example? We are easy demonizing something what we do not like. So we, in the figure of a god is also the archetype. You know this.
Yes.
Jung put it, but it's not because of Jung. I'm a medical doctor. I saw many naked people. All people have the same structure. They have the same internal and external organs. But they belong to different religions. I do not even know when they're naked. I do not know what religion they belong to. So it means there is only one creator. But different groups of people feel that they belong to this particular god. So what is your God doing? Like he is the creator. So, however, we're all the same. So it's very logical to see the similarity that proved us that we have the same source, that we have the same model, and the man as a structure is also the archetype. The archetype of the monkey, the archetype of a dog. So when you show the picture, so you understand that the dog is not the cat.
Okay.
Why? Because the model is like that. And we're saying, so this is a perfect dog. This is
So what should we know about
the mother and the father.
But yeah, let's go back to the mother and the father, because as I said, and you said that I was correct in that there are archetypes that are more useful to us than others. You say they are neutral, and that only depends on like the kind of currency that we give them. If we say they are, if we desacralize them or otherwise. But the person in me that kind of likes to think that there is some sort of objective morality would like to believe that there are certain archetypes that yield better outcomes. So, but if we decide to, let's say, desacralize the mother, for example, I think what that will yield will be a society that is problematic because it will cause all kinds of problems with, the upbringing of children, women not fulfilling their full potential, so on and so forth. So let's kind of dive into the utility of the archetypes in society. I think we've understood what the archetypes are, which are kind of like these models that we can emulate. Some archetypes are more important than others, and they are only given value insofar as the society decides to give them value. So let's kind of dive into why certain archetypes are more important than others, and the mother and the father especially.
Yeah. So this is very, very important question, even for the psychology of a human being, because now probably you heard that we have a lot of family psychotherapy, a lot of counseling, and so we have from one polarity to be totally independent, we're going to another polarity. Children blames their parents for how they are bringing. They do not have enough. Children do not have enough love, do not enough attention, do not enough blah blah blah. As you notice, so it's like two polarities, but the truth is in the middle. And what is the middle truth? The middle truth is that we are searching for some archetypal figure that we already knew that can satisfy us. And what is this archetypal figure? It's connected to the feminine and masculine nature. As you know, so also it's going through different cultures. In Asian tradition, it's called yin-yang. In European tradition, it's called anima and animus.
Okay.
And so in Indian tradition, it's called Shiva Shakti, etc., etc. So it's a dance between two kind of power, female and male. And of course, the first archetype or first model what the child can see is the mother, is the first female, and the father is the first male. So, and because the child is born quite in a helpless condition, cannot walk, cannot provide the food for himself. We're actually very hopeless creatures between all the animals that can stand up on their own legs and follow their
like
mother.
the horse falls out of the mom and just runs off.
Absolutely. So we are different. Why? Because we sort of have a much more complicated constitutions, and we prepared for different journey through life.
Yeah.
Because we have different mind. So this mother and the father, what we have, will sort of, if you want, initiate us. It's like attune our perceptions.
Right.
So it's like a musical instrument, attuned to the particular tonality. Yeah. And once you attune for that, you will sound in this tonality. So we perceived this example, and then sort of in our mind, in our feelings of security, we feel comfortable with that particular model of male and female, even though maybe our parents was abusive towards us, even though maybe our parents left us, dropped us, and maybe we do not even remember our parents. Some perceptions are there.
So the perception remains. So what we're saying is that as a child, there are, let's say, housing units in your brain that are looking for the female archetype, that are looking for the male archetype. And most of the time where we will find that is in our parents, the first woman that we meet and the first man that we meet. Now, let's say
sorry, and that is why we have many of us having a repeatable pattern of, for example, to attract the particular partners. Because we are looking for that particular model where we feel uncomfortably comfortable.
Right.
So where we attract some abuser because we have this pattern that this is how it's supposed to be. Our subconscious belief for that, and we are looking for that.
So if your father beat you, for example, you are likely to go out into the world and look for male companions that are physically abusive.
You actually looking for someone who is absolutely not abusive, but somehow we make this person abusive, or we bring these shadows of this personality to abuse you. You know, so this is a paradox of the mind, and this is how things working. And unfortunately,
in the absence of, let's say, a father, let's say you're born into a single parent household with your dad left before you were born, and there's no male figure there. And we're saying that the mind is searching for that male figure, but finds nothing, comes up blank. What is the effect on the mind in that case?
So then we are looking for some superhero. We are looking to some picture. We are looking. Our superhero can be Jesus. For some culture, superhero can be Buddha, or Spider-Man, or I do not want to make it equal, but I mean it depends of the mind of the child and the surrounding, cultural surrounding of the child. So the child will choose this particular superhero and will try to copy, like Jackie Chan, some boys like it. So some hero that can protect them, that so they're projecting. However, this void for the father will still be there. This until the person will heal this emptiness. So to miss one parent, it means that you will have in your inside, in your perceptions, you will have like this unfulfilled part of yourself, where you do not have a resource. So and then you will be blind. It's like the blind part of the
outside of the kind of relationships that you would be looking for, in the absence of one of these two fundamental archetypes. Are there parts of your psyche that would remain either underdeveloped or overdeveloped? Are there any other effects that you've kind of noticed in patients that have had a missing either mother or father?
Most of the time, people trying to compensate. So they're looking for someone as opposite. So if the mother tell the story that the father dropped them, or for example, like a long time ago in Malta, it was a pirating. Yes, so the father went to the sea and then died, for example, or been killed, or left to the other. It was quite common situation. So the child will fantasize and will make a compensation, and the compensation will be archetypal. So the mind will search for the hero. The hero, and it's another big archetype. And in any culture, you can find a particular hero. You can find Heraclius. Yes, you can find
Heraclius. Is that Hercules?
Hercules. Okay. So you can find the many different heroes. However, one of the heroes is the full one. And if you will go to Maltese tradition or Slavic tradition or American Indian traditions, you will always find this strange archetype of a hero that really full. So like foolish mind, very innocent heart, very naive. So yes, and we call it pure heart.
Yeah.
And somehow, in all these fairy tales and all this traditional talk, this fool is always in a better position than the most clever one. Yeah. So, and this is this fool represent.
We're talking about Jahan here, right?
Soul. Yeah.
Jahan in our case.
Yeah. It's in multi tradition. It's Jahan.
Yeah.
So you have it in your tradition because everyone, each culture, knows about that the fool one will be the best. Why? Because with the naivety and with the pure heart, sort of like justification will come. And so everything will be fine in the end.
In our culture, I think Jahan in the original culture, which is like that, what we had inherited from the Arabs, was like that, was this Jahan guy that would just like by some stroke of like sequence of fortunes, he would wind up like owning half the town, for example. But the Jahan that we were taught as kids was just like this guy who was just like blissfully stupid. And he never really acquired anything. Like a very famous story, just a silly story, is Jahan ul-Bib, which is like Jahan, like his mom or someone says, Jahan, pull the door behind you, which is, and what you say, it's better before I close the door. And Jahan just like takes the door to the bar or something like that. Okay, so when let's say the father is not around, the child is likely to overcompensate for the lack of the father. And does the person do that only by looking for heroes, or does he look for a hero within himself?
First, it's always outside, because when we're small, we're looking for the protection.
Right.
And we're looking for the model that we can copy.
Right.
And sort of it's helpful. However, sometimes we lost our identity, authenticity, because we're becoming to be a persona of that model.
Yeah.
So, and this is another archetype is coming, the most important, self, our authentic self, and the persona. What is a persona? In translation, it means the mask.
The mask,
yeah. And so it's okay to change the mask. So today I'm a father at home, I'm a boss in the office, I'm the specialist somewhere, so I'm a doctor or I'm a trainer. So I'm a citizen, so we have different personas. However, when we identified ourselves with the mask, we start to believe that I'm like that.
Right.
But most of the time, behind the mask is a crying truth, the crying self is there. And why do we need growth with his holotropic breath work or any kind of transformative practice to discover who is behind the mask?
Who is behind the mask, and what is the self?
What is the self?
Which is kind of the most, I think, difficult answer in all of psychology and perhaps mysticism and perhaps religion and the spiritual path and everything else, because look, I liked Jung a lot because Jung kind of broke down this mind in the way that you did in very different compartments. So all of a sudden you could start seeing parts of yourself, the way you act in the world, where you would go and like maybe like yesterday night, we had an issue at the airport, which is why I was late for this interview today. And at the point, I said, just something jumped out at me, and I told the guy, listen, you don't fucking understand. And that got him to call the police and everything else. And I was like, why the fuck did I say that? Now I know that the reason I say that, also because I've been reading Jung while I was on holiday, is that there's a part of me in my shadow that I don't know exactly what it is, what kind of like trauma put it there. Maybe when I was very young, I was bullied, so maybe I'm thinking this guy's trying to bully me, so I have to react this way, and it just makes it at least a bit more clear So when I have to try to answer the question of why did I say that, why did I do that, or why did I wind up in the same situation, that, okay, there's something deep that is not in what you can currently see, right? So you're going to have to dig to try and find out what that is. And at least, while you might not perfectly articulate that for yourself, somehow you start becoming a bit more conscious of the machinery that it's made up of. So before it happens, sometimes you can observe it before it happens, and then you can control it. So it starts happening less and less and less and less. So all this to say that I really like Jung because he puts all these parts together. The ego, which is like really interesting to me, because the ego is like the part that I let other people know of myself and that I let myself know of myself. So that means there's parts of myself that I don't let myself know about myself because it would be too damaging for me to observe. So I just hide it away in the shadow. And that idea blew my mind, especially because as soon as I read it, I'm like, fuck, that's so true. That is definitely real.
Yes, exactly. So sometimes we're so nice, so looking so good. We have a sort of the model of ourselves. We have the idea that we're almost the saint. However, behind this sort of saint, it's a Satanism is coming out because we do not know our shadows. And but we've been told that we have to behave like that. So we've been cooked. And when you're talking to people, sometimes they said, I've been trained like that. Mm-hmm. I've been told like that. Mm-hmm. And it's happening a lot of time in very restrictive cultures. Yeah? Like we call a civilized culture. I do not want to mention, not to offend any. However, you know this, the more society is civilized, the more structure it has to be. Yeah. And so in the end, the monstrosity is coming out. The apotheosis of this monstrosity.
The what, sorry?
Apotheosis. It's like the expression.
Okay. Apotheosis.
Apotheosis, yeah.
I love learning new words, thank you.
Of this monstrosity was Adolf Hitler with his concept of the privilege of the Aryans and Nazism. And Nazism is horrible in any way, and this is the result of the ego. So this is where the really subconscious mind have been repressed, and sort of the ego took over. And so who been Hitler? Or you can take any kind of dictator.
Right.
So you just mentioned that you've been a bit aggressive, and you broke the personal boundaries of some guy, because you said like this, you've been very aggressive. Now in the society, people are extremely sensitive for that.
Yeah.
So they learn a lot about the boundaries and how what happened in the feminine problems in America. So if you offer the seat in the public place for women, they will take. They can take
charged for rape.
Assault, yeah. So sort of it's the other polarity. Yeah. However, we have to understand that it exists that all dictators are immature personalities that sort of in compensations of their pain, internal pain, they develop some masks, some personas that they hide behind. And this ego developed this concept of the priority. I am in the priority. My race is in the priority. So each nation, whatever happened, like what happened now between Russia and Ukraine, my personal pain about it, because as I mentioned, my mother is Russian and my father is Ukrainian. So, and it's the same tribe of Slavic and the same culture, the same tradition. So it's a big drama. But this is what happened when the dictator is getting the power. And unfortunately, we are in the age when immature people with a lot of psychological issues in the compensation, they bring these masks of being responsible, being strong, being sort of like alpha. Yeah, you can see Putin's picture, for example, or the pictures of some other
But Putin's
rulers.
pictures are the best. Shirtless, on a horse.
Absolutely.
I won that for my birthday.
So you can take Hitler or you can take Pinochet. So you can take any kind of dictator. So they're absolutely the same because it's all immature children that develop this egoistic mask, the persona. They start to believe that they are like that.
So my question is, if these people are egotistical children, immature, underdeveloped psychologically, how do they make it to the top of the food chain like that?
Because
but before you answer, would you like some coffee?
Yeah, please. Let's
Yes.
do.
Hit us up with
Let's do.
2 espressos. Thank you. How do they succeed in ascending the social hierarchy?
So it's a good question because they always reflect the conscious state of the society.
Okay.
And so this is where we are touching a very sensitive part of the society, modern society, and we can absorb where we are. In general, what is the value of the society? Yeah. So what is the sort of interconnections in the society? What is the priority? And you can see the more society connected to the materialistic part, the more the society immature.
Okay.
Why? Because sort of it's like a materialistic idea, materialistic development, evolution, based on qualities of desire. I want that, I need this because it will make me stronger. And it's
Which
not
is a childish way of interfacing with the world.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I want to conquer that nation. I want to remove this mountain. This river must go to the other way around. So let me make the nuclear explosion. Yeah, because I don't care. I'm in a privilege. And this is what happens when people do not have responsibility, the maturity of the mind, the responsibility of the world, and understanding that you will have a next generation where these people will live. We are leaving behind the world. But this immaturity brings this illusion that they will live forever.
Is there the counter side to having excessive materialism? Because while you're mentioning, problematic societies that tend to be too materialistic, I'm also thinking, but there's other societies that are excessively uncivilized and they wind up causing pain in other ways. So,
well, if you will take the uncivilized cultures, you can see the Amazonian cultures, you can find, just go to the Asia, go to the Africa, to some deep places, you can see how people are living. They are living in the society that is pricing the land where they are. They develop a special relationship in good hierarchy based of respect and respectful authorities, not because I am the powerful alpha, but because I know the value, so the wisdom bring them to these qualities. So they take care of the land, they call it sacred land. The American Indians, African, Amazonian cultures. So
and it's like, for example, American Indians, from my understanding, and it's not like I know too much about that, the way that culture developed, but when they became more materialistic, and they developed into their little cities and then eventually the kingdoms, they became far more brutal. They're starting to massacre everyone around. Is it just like, so two questions. So one, is it just like a case of a cycle of how societies just tend to develop and they just tend to become kind of more self-centered and self-absorbed and individualistic, which is a bit what we're seeing nowadays, which is what I think is a part of the things that's leading to more suicide, more anxiety, and so forth. And the other part is more of kind of like a footnote, because while let's say the West, for example, is more materialistic and is causing these things that we're both agreeing upon, the West's propensity for being materialistic, I think, pushes us towards improving our technology, improving our medicine, improving our transport, improving this, that, and the other. And the consequence of that has been things like less childbirths, better control of our health in general, better access to transport. So there is kind of like a positive trade-off as well. Is it possible to have the cake and eat it, is what I kind of want to get to.
Global question, as you know this. That it's true, the world now more and more into the polarization process. And even in the same society, there are people who sort of reject to follow, to be in a business. I know quite many good people, they are children of a very successful business people. They just refused to follow their parents' path because they feel it's unfair. They feel it's not matching to their nature. So you ask quite global questions. So according to the tribal people, they've been spoiled badly. And now what do we have? For example, people in Africa. Africa is one of the richest continents.
Of course, yeah.
And what happened? The white man came there with his Coca-Cola, with his ideas how things have to work, and exploit the local people. And what do we have now? Yes, like in Europe, it's a big catastrophe from the refugees. Malta have to deal with all this disaster. Small Malta have to deal with the disaster that European civilization brought here. Europeans and Americans, because we are closer. Absolutely. So, why? And these people, because I was dealing with refugees, even in Malta, so they absolutely lost their roots. They lost the hope, they lost their culture, they do not know what to do. The great hunter of the desert, yes, with this nobility, I spoke with some of them. They are very clever, very intelligent. And with all this pride, all of a sudden insult and humiliated and sort of feel absolutely useless. And then it's drugs, you know this, and blah, blah, blah. The American Indians have been badly spoiled with the alcohol. So, for example, in USSR, the country where I've been born. Now this country does not exist. So we use it also was intoxicated by the North tribes, Eskimos, etc., with the alcohol. So the mothers, in favor to work, they give the alcohol with the milk to their babies to sleep because they have to work.
One generation ago, we did that in Malta. We did what we did, to be fair to us, is we used to take the dummy, put it in a bit of whiskey like that, just a bit, and then put it in the, like you know, the top of the bottle. And that's what we used to do. So just so things are clear, you know, I feel like I can confess to you.
Yeah, we're all involved into that crime. Yeah. So, but this is the question about what is happening, because of course this rough male attitude, forceful, invasive, took the cultures that was in harmony, that this is what I mean, this desacralization of the land, because they just took it over, the industry took over the oil and the gas, and before it was a sacred land for the Americans.
Let me, so when I hear that, I'm wondering, doesn't that also make the tribes or the lands people over there that got exploited by these forces also immature in a way because they weren't somehow, they didn't integrate. Let's say if a tribe is coming to attack you and colonize you, if you haven't integrated, let's say, the warrior part of you, you're immature in that sense because you can't fight them off. And so when I'm hearing about, let's say, the Aborigines or the American Indians that do have a problem with alcohol, doesn't that make them immature in other ways? Like they weren't prepared for dealing with beer in their existence. I worked a lot with refugees. It was one of the defining moments of my life. I worked with them for years in the time where I was kind of trying to shift the course of my life. And I did find that a lot. Like, for one thing, for example, that was really used to confuse me was Somalis' fascination with sugar. So,
With
like,
sugar.
Jesus Christ. Like, they would have literally 10 teaspoons of sugar with their coffee. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm like, no, bro, sit down with me. Let me show you a YouTube video of what that's doing to your teeth, what that's doing to your blood. Blah, 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 blah. But anyway, because certain cultures weren't exposed to certain things, they don't know how to handle them. Doesn't that make you immature that you don't approach certain new things with a fair amount of caution?
Mm-hmm. So look, every culture is based on the system of values.
Okay.
And of course, when the material material aspect of being is in favor, and the other aspect, the spiritual aspect, is neglected, you are losing the best qualities. And what are the best qualities? It's nobility of your character. It's the appreciation, gratitude. Yeah. So people are forced now in the religion. People are scared. God becoming to be like a policeman. Yeah. So if you will do that, you will be punished for that. But we're all reading in the Bible, God is love. So it's without punishment. So these native people, they believe that God is love. That the forces of nature, they are love, they are divine, they are sacred. And so they still develop in their character this noble way. For example, the warrior, the same archetype of you can say it, Spider-Man or the hero of some Indian tribe. It's the same qualities, the nobility, the power, etc. And however, to deal with the American Indian or with your enemy with the guns, yeah, Kalashnikov, for example, or to deal with the arrows is a different story.
Yeah.
So that is the things, the question of honesty. So everyone was watching Avatar. So it was very, very illustrative to show the priorities, what did we lose as a civilization, and everyone is nostalgic about it. This is why, with all our technology, with all our advanced mind and science, the suicidal rate is just growing. Why?
Yeah.
Because this unsatisfaction of our soul is there. And so subconscious stuff, subconscious mind connected us to this, leading us actually it's a path to our soul. Actually, anima and the animus, you know what does it mean?
It means the soul.
It's a soul in a female appearance or
Or the
in a
male.
male appearance. Yeah.
Okay, you just threw like 3 or 4 bombs, and I'm wondering which one I should follow. Okay, so let's go with the current state of mental health. All right, you said that even though we have all this technology, we have access to all this medicine, and we just like, this is the best materially. We've never been richer, right? Spiritually, perhaps, I don't know. We've never been poorer. I haven't lived through all of the ages, but it does feel to me like there is a depth there that we are not. Like, I think it's impossible to reach a depth in our society right now unless you really look for it, because it's a very chaotic society. There's things that are constantly looking to try and get your attention, whether that's your Facebook or your Instagram or an advert or the jackhammer in the background or the guy honking the horn. But like, everything is constantly demanding your attention, and now all our kids are ADHD. Is it all our kids are ADHD? Or is it just the society is impossible to negotiate with the human mind, so our children are not able to focus? No surprises there, right? So the fact that we are never allowed to sink deep into our psyches, because every time you try to kind of focus onto one thing, and maybe that one thing is your inner self, something is demanding your attention. Something's like, hey, look at this. Hey, check out who liked your photo. Hey, look who sent you a message. Listen, your phone's ringing. The bill is due for your kids. Da, da, da. So the inability to reach that depth, it's like you never really get to know yourself on almost any level. You just become this reactive robot that's just like answering questions and just performing through the persona the whole time, which is what you said earlier. Then you go home, you're like, fuck it, man, I need the whiskey, get drunk so I can sleep, and I can bear the thought of starting all of that shit tomorrow again. So I think the fact that we never connect with ourselves, really, even though we've become very individualistic, we don't, like, the part of the individual we're connecting with is very shallow. And since we can't connect with the deep part of our individual self, that's then impossible to connect with other people. So we have a very shallow relationship with ourselves, and almost many people have zero relationships, actual relationships with the people around them. And I think that is what's leading to people becoming more anxious, people figuring out this isn't worth it, I'm just existing, so what's the point, you know? Yeah.
John, you're touching extremely important questions, because, and it's not only for the Western civilization, it's becoming to be a huge problem for us as the Earthians, because together with our intoxications of the social mind, so we intoxicate the planet, and we intoxicate all our beings around us. We, of course, intoxicate the next generation.
Right.
And so how we intoxicate ourselves? Of course, like drugs and alcohol, and so excessive sexual entertainment, and a lot of watching programs, and a lot of this discussion where politicians are fighting with each other, so we're involved, who is the right, who is the wrong.
Know your food. Book your food intolerance and allergy test now. Browns.
You say too many interesting things, so I'm going to have to slow you down, because we need to pick all of those things apart.
Yes.
It's like every time you stop talking, my brain goes, okay, 6 topics, choose one. I'm going to roll the dice. Okay, so we're going to go with the Peter Pan complex.
Okay,
with
lovely.
With a man as a child, men not growing up. But before, let me take a note so I don't forget about ego and boundaries. Okay, so look, from where I'm standing, I don't know if I'm being nostalgic, if I watch too many black and white movies. I see men refusing to grow up. Like, there's very little incentive for men to grow up explicitly. Like, they can't see it. They can't see that committing to things like fatherhood, family, sacrifice, there's actually a payoff that is not something I can explain to you in material terms. Whereas it's far easier for me to tell you, Forget the kids. You can have as much sex as you like. You can have no commitment. You can get drunk every night. You can do coke every night. Don't worry about it. Like, you can have pleasure for the rest of your life. Kids and wife and that, it's a very hard sell to sell. No, bro, you have to finish work, go home, maybe cook, or tell the kids, like, really speak to your kids, and then tuck them in bed. And then you have to, wake up. You still want to work out, you have to wake up at 5 a.m. And then by 6, you have to be back home to take your kids to school, because, your kids need to know their father, and there's certain things that you need to get. Like, that's such a hard sell when compared to just, like, sex every day with different women, right? And so what most people are choosing, what most men are choosing, is that even if they don't get sex every day, in their mind they're going to get sex every day, they choose to just do the adolescent thing, right? And never commit. Now, there's also another phenomenon that is embedded in that, which is something that, I don't know if you know the African-American economist called Thomas Sowell, S-O-W-E-L-L. Let me try and show you a picture of him, maybe that guy, quite a famous face. Well, he talks about kind of the crisis of fatherlessness in America. And what happened was, I think it was sometimes in the late 50s, when the social services in America became really developed. So what happened was, women were saying the phrase, "I don't need you anymore," because the government will pay. Like, what you're providing, I don't need it. The government will send me a check. So what happened was that exponentially, more men were hearing, "I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't need you." On the other side, on the flip side of that, is everything else we've been talking about, all the other adolescent incentives. And men were just leaving. And the consequence of that was more and more kids, especially boys, were getting into drugs, getting into violence, winding up in prison, flunking out of school. So you see a direct correlation, so direct, I would hazard to say it's a causation, of absent fathers and children just becoming derelict and delinquent, right? So why is all this happening now, right? Why is it that now men are far less likely to take up the mantle of manhood?
We are living in this strange time when we have a lot of opportunity for self-transformation or self-indulgence. So self-indulgence, and you know what is this? It's when we indulge on our weakness, and we sort of have a lot of, we're trying to find a lot of reasons why shouldn't I grow up.
Yeah.
So because of the government, because of this, these politicians, so every time when you blame someone, you are losing your power.
Yeah.
So, and then in the end, you do not have the power to do.
Right.
So if you are dependent on something, or because of the drug, or because who was my father, he was a drinking one, I didn't have a father, so poor me, miskin. Yeah, so it's or mother, or I don't have enough qualities, or my mother never gave me love enough, etc. So every time when we blame someone, when we put the sort of someone in the empowering position that I dependent from this person, we are losing our energy. So we need to be careful by blaming someone, the teacher in the school, or the government, the politicians, etc. So because like this, we're losing the power. So the more responsibility we take when we said, okay, I have this childhood, why my children should have a similar childhood? So I have to show them the opposite. Yeah. So I have a son. So somebody cannot have a son. As you know, the level of infertility is growing up. Yeah. So women have to start to do the artificial inseminations because they want the children. But some people, it's easy to produce children, and they just neglected them. Why? Not enough maturity, because they sort of develop this indulgent attitude with life. So it's what can I do? Yes, people think, you know, this habitual and malicious expression. Exactly. So what can I do? Who am I? And this question is very harmful. If you're asking from early childhood, the child, who are you to tell me that? Like you humiliating a child, you depleting the power. Children have to be seeing but not heard. So you deplete the power. Of course, discipline and education and the structure of the mind is important in a friendly atmosphere. Of course, the structure has to be there. However, without this not noble way, because it's still a human being, just dependent on you. Why should you abuse?
Of course.
This child. Yeah. So children are in a situation when they have no money, they have no home. They are homeless. So we sort of, they are our children. Of course, they are under our roof, but then sort of when they're 15 only, so some parents saying, oh, you are under my roof, so you have to follow me, without any trying to speak properly before you put your direction. Because I said, so you have to develop this authority of yourself before, so the child will know that the child will rely on this particular father. And so I found that is the way to infantilization of yourself, to not to take the responsibility, to blame the others, to blame the external forces. And so instead to go deeper and to choose this, because still when you speak with the adult man, and you're talking about deep question. How was your hero? Who was your hero when you've been small? So they do not understand that it's a question of you now. So they say, oh, you know, it was this particular person, so I put his photograph on my wall, so he was my hero. And so I was very proud to follow. And then what have happened? Then, you know what, life took over. So how life will take over? Choice. It's a question of a free choice. What path you will choose. What is
interesting is, why do people
make this choice?
Make this choice? Because if you're, like, let's say I'm watching, for example, Lion King with my kids. They know who they know who the hero is. I've watched the movie with my kids' friends. None of them ever thought, Scar is the guy I want to win. Yeah, they all know that Scar is crap. Like, you don't want Scar as the head of your society. They know, they understand it. And they're hoping, they're watching Simba and they're hoping that Simba is going to find the nobility inside of him. He's going to find the power. He's going to, meet his anima, which is the girl Nala, right? And he has to integrate Nala into his being so he can now become the king that he is meant to be. But the point is that when my kids watch that, they know exactly what to hope for. They know exactly who to root for. They know exactly who they want to be, essentially. So then at some point, so in my kids' brains, there is kind of like when we used to collect the football stickers, there is like archetype of hero. Okay, that sticker goes there, and they know it. But then over time, life happens. True.
Yes, life is challenging.
Yes, it is. Of course, life is challenging.
Yeah.
But
and then we're talking about the social values. Yes, the social surrounding. And what happened in our society is we value something that are against our values, what we're really in touch with. So like what, for example, who is the most successful? Who have more money?
Yeah.
So why? Because in the money you can buy everything, and you can fulfill your desires.
Yeah.
So the highest value is the desire to fulfill your desires. And as you know, we never can complete it, because the more you fulfill yourself, the more you want. So there are many folks stories about that. The greed and this unsatisfied ego will never stop. And this is actually all marketing built up as a priority of the society. So the society is ready to give the new generation of our kids to sort of sacrifice them in favor of that market of the. And so the nobility, what you mentioned before, is not in value. Who are you with your noble character? You still where you are now. So you're still working, you still have your small company, or you might be working as the accountant, or and who are you? Oh, I'm working with the government, for example. I'm recognized. And how did you manage it? Because I went there, so I make a bit this, and I make a bit this. So, as you know, there's some oil dealer bring me this, or I involve myself into the drug business. As you know, this is also not a secret that a lot of government, I mean in general, in the world, some people involved into the people traffic and the drugs traffic, etc. A lot of wars are about it. So, for example, like the war of Afghanistan.
Heroin.
Very easy to see, but it's still the official concept is different, of course, to save the Afghanistanian people, of course. So we always
I think there was definitely soldiers in there that really wanted to save the Afghani women, for example, when you see what the Taliban were doing to I've seen horrible things that. So I'm pretty sure there are people that bought into it, but when you see like the huge profits that the military complex made, the military industrial complex made, and the heroin trade post Taliban, I think shot up. Can you check? I think it was like once the US went in, it shot up by like 90% or something crazy like that.
And this is all the shadow part of our mind manifested as a society value, as a social value. So what are the values? So we need to see what are the values in our society.
Okay, so again, I'll go back to the cake and eat it part, but this time with all this information that you've given me. So one of the archetypes that bothers me and is very present in the Maltese society is the martyr, right? The martyr archetype. And that's very kind of common in Maltese society. Like you should suffer if you're actually a good person. Like there's two archetypes. You either have to be just and suffer endlessly and live poor and just be completely marginalized from society and be good. Or you can be very rich, openly like driving around some massive Porsche Cayenne, and everyone knows you're actually corrupt. And those are kind of like those are your two options. So obviously, much of the society is going, I think I'm going to go with the Porsche. So I have issue with the martyr type. Like I really don't think, and maybe this is my vested interest, maybe because I'm concerned about like what I will leave my children, even materially. I don't endorse the idea that in order to be noble, you must also be forlorn and poor and have no material kind of power to you. I don't know what you think about that. Am I wrong? Am I wishfully thinking that I can balance those two things?
So
I'm never getting the Porsche, by the way. Never getting the Porsche.
So I'm seeing it from the point of the archetype. So, as you know, for example, in the Catholic and many Christian traditions, not only Malta, but included Russia, etc., included many different countries. So, the archetype of God and archetype of Jesus are a bit different. Yeah. So, and what I saw in Malta, the archetype of Jesus is the suffering Jesus.
Right, exactly.
With the bruises, bleeding, and suffering.
Yeah.
So what can you feel if someone is suffering for you? You can feel only guilt.
Correct. Yes.
You feel guilt, compassion. You
Yeah.
feel that if you want to
How
be like
interesting.
this, that you have to suffer. So you
Yeah.
believe for suffer. This is the answer from my point. The answers for your questions. However, knows by studying Christianity, the amazing things, the miracle things of Jesus is the resurrection. Because so many have been crucified and suffered on the cross. However, only Jesus managed to resurrect. So this picture of Jesus in resurrections, you hardly can see in the churches. So,
Really,
and
it stops at the cross. You're right.
it's imprinted into people's mind. I hope I won't be burned as a couple of centuries in the fire.
For giving good advice,
Yeah.
for telling the church to
Yeah.
update.
So, however, even though I believe for Jesus, however, I believe for Jesus' resurrections.
Okay.
Because that is the example for me. So whatever happened to you, how deeply you are suffering, you have a chance to be resurrected.
Right.
You have your soul, your emotions, your mind, your whole life can be resurrected.
Yeah.
So, and that is the beauty, and that is the confirmation of life.
Yeah.
So, not the...
Oh, interesting.
Not this suffering, tears, etc.
Why do you think they did that? Because now that you like this is the first time I've really thought about it, and I think about this stuff quite a bit, right? Because the finality of that story isn't the crucifix. The crucifix is just a stage in the story.
Exactly.
The story ends with him living happily ever after.
Exactly,
But
John.
the story we always get imprinted in our mind is, oh, look how much he suffered. Oh, and you're going to lie. You know how much you know how much pain that guy went through because of you? And that is everything. And I don't know, you've been in Malta a long time, so you've probably been to these il-Ġimgħa Kbira on Good Friday. Like the statues are like horrorcore.
It's like a dark mass.
It's very dark. It's very dark.
Yeah.
It's like...
You know what? The feelings of guilt is also archetypal.
Okay.
And the more it's imprinted in our mind, the more easy to manipulate with a human being. So I'm seeing it as an instrument of manipulation. I'm asking to forgive me to everyone who disagree.
Yeah.
However, you can see it clear. You cannot cut half of your brain and not think about it.
Yeah.
But you can see the more people feeling guilt, the easier to manipulate. So this is why sometimes females manipulate men, but making them
Feel guilty.
So you are the bastard one. You are the bad one. I did this. And you, yes. So, and then what happened? Nothing good is happening out of guilt. So you're trying to defend yourself, but to feel guilty, it's a sabotage of your resurrection. So it's a sabotaging of your empowerment. You're actually disempowered. And so this is what happened, because some feelings makes us stronger, and some feelings makes us very weak. Being guilty, it's a very disempowered method to do. And many organizations, included religion organizations, not only Catholicism or Orthodox Christianity, but in some other monasteries. I found it even in the Hindu traditions or in mosques. So I've been in all of this culture. I study. I was very curious. I live with the people of different religions.
Yeah.
So and you can see that people have similar spiritual values. Whatever God they call, Allah, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Sabaoth, doesn't matter. So very similar values. However, sort of to touch the subject is dangerous. Why? Because it can release the mind. It can bring the hope that I can be different. I can be a hero. I'm the one who can be a hero.
Can anyone be a hero?
Everyone can be a hero. Everyone who will recognize it in himself, in herself. It's a journey of a hero, but it's also a journey of a heroine. So for women, it's also a journey. And you can see in the pantheon, for example, of Greek goddesses and gods, you can find a lot of goddesses in a very strong protective status. Yes, like goddess Athena. Yeah. You can find Kali goddess who protect, who have this looking very ugly, however, sort of protect justice.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can find it. In
What's the name of that goddess?
Kali.
Kali?
Kali. Yeah.
Did she have long nails?
Long nails and sharp, sharp teeth. And,
she has sharp tongue. She has sharp tongue. Sharp tongue is the one we have here.
Yeah. So, what do I mean? Everyone can find it, discover it, because we was giving free choice. So our free choice is what we can be. Who do we want in reality? But this capacity have been taken from us. By what? By declaring us, if you will do that, you will break this law. If you will do that, you will break this law. You will be a sinner. You will do this, then you will be punished for that. So the fear is another instrument of the manipulation. Yeah, guilt and fear, two strongest manipulative psychological weapons for the society. And as you know, it's coming through from the medieval time and even before. So it's not something new. It's just with the technology it takes different things. And what can you feel? You just want to numb yourself. How you can numb yourself? By watching porno from morning till another morning, by playing computer games. Yeah, so until you will feel absolutely crazy, by drinking alcohol or drugging yourself. If you do not have enough support, guidance, and enough your own intelligence. Some people are intelligent, some people have undeveloped mind. They have this capacity, but they have undeveloped mind.
Yeah.
So the society must help them, but it's not profitable for the society because then people can't be manipulated. Everyone will be so aware about what have happened.
Again, well done. So, just to defend religion for a bit, it'll be a very short bit. Recently I saw some, like a study about, like they interviewed people that have like progressive, liberal, left-leaning ideals that tend to not be religious, tend to not be conservative, tend to not care about the family unit and things like that, and that like values can be anything and you can just choose whichever values you like and then you pursue them. And they interviewed another group of conservative people that are more inclined to have families, have a religious group, be part of a community, and have very kind of well-defined value structures that are conservative. So they come from, from several generations before them. They've kind of inherited that value structure. And what they found was that the people that don't have a conservative value structure are far more anxious, far more likely to commit suicide, far more likely to have suicidal ideation. So for me, I think religion, while it does have this tendency to become excessively orderly, excessively imposing of its values, and use bad tools like guilt, like what we're saying, and fear, if you do that, you're going to hell forever. So stop. At the same time, religion has these, what I think are archetypical values that resonate with us on a very deep level. And I think Christ and perhaps some other figures, perhaps Moses at certain times, perhaps Abraham at certain times, were also archetypes calling us to nobility.
I absolutely agree with you, and I'm not against the religion. I'm against the misusing the religion, because the religion have an essential part of spirituality. And that is why people in a deep spiritual, religious way, they knew how to pray. They knew how to do. My friend, who unfortunately 1 year ago passed away, Father Mario Zarafa, he was a very, very pure heart, and he was a monk, a Dominican monk. And so we discuss a lot about it, and I'm absolutely not against the religion. However, we need to know, to understand where there is a sacred part of the religion, but what is the behind the counter. So I know that in Malta, for example, I've been involved into the group to support some people who've been unfortunately in the church sexually abused. You know, there's some women and children, etc. Why does it happen? Because with the name of the God. So it's not a question of the religion, because religion is not guilty. People misuse these ideas and concept. So with the name of God, with the name of Jesus, and who bring love, the most people have been killed. As you know, the Christian wars counted much more people than, for example, Muslim wars. We declare Muslims are the very aggressive nation. However, it's all under the name of love. So we have to be conscious, we have to be aware how the organizations misuse us and who is behind. So we need to be more, we cannot be ignorant. We need to be more knowledgeable. So there is no time to sit in the bar and to make yourself intoxicated. So there is you need to learn, because you need to go and bring it to your children and say, look, boy, I'm your father. And I'm said like that because, father is a god for a small child in the beginning. So why the teenagers are fighting with the mother and father in a particular age? Because they start to realize that the mother and the father are just a common people. So they do not know that, and they fall the test of the child, and they're not good enough maybe, or that and that. So it's it's Wagner, so the fallen gods, and then they sort of, teenagers do not understand what is going on, and then they start to intoxicate themselves. However... When
you say intoxicate themselves, like to cope?
Yes, like to cope, because, the values are depleted. Mm-hmm. So then if there is no value to be noble, if I have a father who didn't pass my test, so I can throw away my father, so I can just neglect. This constant fight between many teenagers and the parents, because they stop to be the authority for them. And this is what I call desacralization, because in our society, instead of supporting the familyhood, the motherhood, the fatherhood, so the society is unsupporting them. Mm-hmm. Support, is not just programs of you should do that or you should do that. No, you should teach them. Yeah, so some people are not simply do not have enough knowledge. You are becoming to be a father. Nobody told you
No.
how to be a father.
It's so
I'm
scary.
the mother, so nobody told me how to be the mother. So we are passing through our own mistakes,
Yeah.
and we're doing our best.
The only lessons you learn about being a parent is by being someone's child.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, and then when you're becoming to be a parent, then when you're making a peace with your own parents.
Correct.
So before that, you always have all these feelings of deficiency that your parents wasn't good enough. But then you're realizing, oh God.
This is so hard.
Yes.
You become so like your arrogance after like the first 3 days of no sleep. You're like, okay, I get it. All right. I've been a snotty, ungrateful little prick for the last 16 years of my life. Sorry, Ma. Sorry, Dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's such an enlightening moment. I don't know if there is a way for people to become actual adults unless they have kids and they have to like be where the buck stops. I'm pretty sure there might be other ways, but for sure the one most efficient and definite way that I know is by committing to be a parent. Nirringrazzjakom tal-li għet t-segwu il-podcast tijaj ma' Lidia l-lum, nittama li għet t-ħdu għost t-segwu. Aktar mennek, nfakkar li għaw numru ta' azzjendi ta' kumpaniji li huma ta' sostenna l-dan il-podcast għal-daqstant jek t-ixtiqu intom ta' podġaw dan il-podcast, nirrakkomanda li tamlu użu mis-servizzi u mill-prodotti ta' dawn il-kumpaniji li ġejjin u dawn huma il-Browns, il-Vinja Capricci ta' Abram li l-ewwel u qabel kollox il-kwalità total Abram. Il-Maple permess ta' sourdough li bihom nis u d-masses li jgħu barra. Grazzi il-National Book Council li bejn it-18 u 22 ottubru ħajtellaw il-Festival tal-Ktib 9966-425 jek trid il-Derek iġiblek il-xira tal-laħam qudiem il-bib tad-dar fuq l-adba, Apex Media tal-SEO, il-Garmin, il-Kutriko, l-Cabs, il-Ferrara Kaza, kif ukoll il-Hungry Hippie li ta' sekwiet nkun qiegħed hemmhekk biex niltaqa' mal-mistednin qabel ma ġewwek jew kellha nieqaf jien biex nieħu kafè jew nieqaf jien biex nieħu risotto jew tnejn tal-ħaruf għax tajjeb. Insomma, u għall-post ukoll fejn nagħmlu l-avvenimenti tagħna tad-dibattitu jekk għadkom qatt ma kontu parteċipi fihom itlu fil-Patreon ħatkunu tafu naqra iktar. Dak kollox għalissa jien u Lidia Babenko inkomplu ngħidu. It's so backbreaking.
Yes, it is. But there is a method. Psychology and psychotherapy is now develop so many tools to be aware. So there are many specialists, and I know that in Malta there are many services that offer to the citizens free services to help people to pass through their difficulties and through their trauma. Yes, this post-traumatic stress disorders is quite a serious condition. So when you're under the stress or under the pain, your mind is very narrow. So your perceptions are also very narrow.
Yeah.
And then when you intoxicate yourself, these intoxications make you numb, and it's developed just this elusive part of yourself. Then you do not understand what happened to you. And then the food, what we eat, also with a lot of sugar and additives, makes us very uncertain because it's absolutely proven by science, by biochemical science, that food influence our way of thinking and our mind and our brain capacities as well.
For sure.
So this is all.
After I eat 2 donuts, my IQ points drop by 50%. I become a very much stupider version of myself. Like when I eat these like excessive carbohydrates in one go, like I'm just like, bro, I can't compute anything. So agreed. Just a point that I wanted to make. Yes, the state does provide for new parents. What I found was like, I didn't always feel very welcome as the male, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So we used to make these jokes, me and my wife actually. Like I used to, like when she gave birth, obviously I wanted to sleep at the hospital. And there was like the comfortable chair. And like I sat on it, like while my wife was in the bed. And the nurse said, "That's for the mother." Like, okay, cool. Where do I sit? Like for next 8 hours. And they just gave me like this wooden chair. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. But it just didn't feel very welcoming. And still, I think, like psychologically, no one prepared me for fatherhood. And I think that should definitely, there should be a service for that.
You are again touching a very important point of perinatal psychology. This is where holotropic breathwork and Stan Grove's aspect of transpersonal psychology is coming in, because holotropic breathwork can help to heal this part of this early trauma of birth. So we think that if we haven't been entangled with the umbilical cord, or if we didn't have a breach in our mother, or if we didn't have a cesarean, or something, a dead life condition was there, so we didn't have a trauma. We said, I've been born very casual. But in reality, we all pass through the trauma in our culture simply because our mother was in a very painful experience, most of the mothers.
Yeah.
And so they was giving birth not for the, according to the power of the gravity, but in perpendicular, in the bed, to make comfortable for the doctor. You understand?
Yes.
So it's a doctor who have to be comfortable, not the mother.
Yeah.
What, for example, tribal woman was doing some time ago, she was sitting on the desert, and so with her power, she pushed the baby, and baby went down to the sand, soft sand. So the woman have her own catharsis. And I spoke with some women. They said their grandmothers told them that during the birth, they achieved the highest orgasm in their life. So that is the sort of life experience.
That's weird for me.
That's weird.
It's
For
very
me
weird
too.
for me.
For me too, because I never even being a
Associated.
medical doctor. Yes. However, this is what have happened. And so it's a happiness, it's a field of happiness.
Right.
I'm talking about it openly because I'm on this field for over 30 years of perinatal psychology. So I met Stan Grove in the beginning of 1990. And so it's actually changed my career. I left medicine as a system and psychiatry and went to the area of psychotherapy, transpersonal psychology, and naturopathy.
And sorry?
Naturopathy. It's, many different methods, natural methods of treatment.
Yeah.
Included Ayurveda, included studjat therapy, etc. So that is the why I mention about that, because that is the beginning of ours. And so how to heal this trauma? With the breathwork, what Grove offered to the world as a method, with this breathwork, what you experience as well, you can achieve this level of your memory.
Yeah.
So by talking to my colleagues, I'm a psychiatrist, so we have a very skeptical mind. My colleagues, medical doctors, are also trained to have a skepticism. And it's good. In medicine, we should be skeptical and conservative. However, not so much, because we have to experience with ourselves. Yeah. And so then, instead of being conservative and rigid, we need to see the new possibilities, how to heal, new opportunities. Instead of saying your condition is terminal, so maybe this person will find another resources from another aspect of personality. So perinatal state, the moment of pre-birth, the development as a fetus, then birthing experience, and then after birthing experience until the verbal age, it's called all perinatal experience. Very, very important. It's actually the settled matrix of human life.
A settled matrix of human life. What,
Yeah.
Could you
So it's
explain that a bit
it's
more?
like a pattern. For example, if the child has been struggled inside of the womb, the birth channel was closed. Mother's birth channel didn't open yet up, but the contraction was there of the womb. And for example, a child have a broken placenta, so the child have no feelings of there is an entrance. So what the baby can do to suffer inside and to die together with the mother. Yeah. So it's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
The feelings, it's like feelings of betrayal. The universe of nirvana. For 9 months it was there, providing food, bringing a nice temperature, comfort, and enjoyment. Of course, the fetus do not understand it's the mother, but it's just perceiving the feelings and the perceptions of being comfortable and protected.
So we're saying, because obviously we don't have, in our conscious mind, no one has memories of their birth, right?
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that part of what is stored in the unconscious mind is perhaps the trauma that could have happened during childbirth that we feel betrayed by existence itself, because we're having an amazing time, and now all of a sudden placenta's broke, but there's no way out, I'm gonna die.
Definitely it is, and you can ask what's the proof. So from the position of quantum physics, from the positions of a biologist like Sheldrake with his morphogenetic field of information, and so you probably read now this book of Beyond the Brain of growth. So there are many different aspects of modern science are mentioned. So the science is developing. However, it's not profitable for the society to use this knowledge. It's again, we are connected to the question of it's profitable or not for the society, how to manipulate the society. So this trauma will be imprinted in the mind as a pattern, and then the person will continue the life on the base of these perceptions.
Right.
The world can betray you, so you are not welcome. For example, the child is born normally, but then the temperature is in the room, operative theater, for example, plus 20 or 21, and inside of the mother it's plus 37.
Yeah.
So it's a huge difference. Can you imagine being an adult just to come from that temperature to the other? But the baby have even more sensitivity. Then the light is coming exactly direct to the space of birth. So the born. Then the metal instruments are clean. Sometimes the doctors are talking, and so it's too much. Too much. And then the child, the baby is cut out, the umbilical cord just cut out, so you have no oxygen, you have to breathe. But the lungs are very delicate, so they are closed. So instead of giving a chance and the time when the placenta will be born as well, so in the old tradition, I don't know now how it is, so they just cut the umbilical cord, and the child have to do the first inhale with a lot of pain and burning sensations towards the lungs. So, and this first imprint of pain, do not breathe in a full volume.
So they breathe shallow.
So breathe shallow, and then it's imprinted in the mind. Do not be too much. Do not be too much seeing. Do not be too much explosive. Do not show much yourself. Hide yourself. You will reduce the pain.
So presumably, like, this is the experience of like most people born in the West. But there are still a lot of people in the West that don't have complexes or don't have, like, I should say, like, conditions, and they don't have anxieties. What's the difference between those people that have a finely attuned relationship with their mental health, and people that I will not allow, but kind of like that trauma affects the rest of their life? What are the differences? Is it life choices? Is it society? Is it parenting? Is it just genetics? Like, some people are just better with stress?
Of course, genetics are a very important part. And now there's directions of some science, it's called epigenetics, kind of psychosomatic disorders are there. So it's a good direction, and medicine developed that way. However, from the psychological part of view, you can see nowadays a lot of children with attention deficiencies, with hyperactivities, so they cannot sleep properly, they cannot concentrate for a long time. Why does it happen? Some of them have this strong trauma of birth. Because, as you know, before, when women was giving birth at home, I'm not saying that it's the best way
to do it, right?
Yes, it was unhygiene, etc., and many kids was dying.
Correct.
However, sort of, why shouldn't we find a solution?
Yeah, it's the cake and eat it for me. It's like, look, we have the technology, and at the same time, we have some conservative ideas. And if we kind of try to find the middle ground of these two things, we could really have what for me is kind of like the male and the female, what is like the openness and the order. Like, these two things need to come together. There was a point in my life where I was just like, no, order. Just, we need to get everything in line and everything needs to fit in a box. But then what I over time learned is that you need to allow space for the creative to kind of flow into that order. Otherwise it's Hitler, right? Otherwise it's dead, right? Otherwise over.
Yeah, the most disciplined person is dead person.
Yeah. Yes. But and this my reverence for order came from the fact that I had a very chaotic adolescence, and that got me into a lot of trouble. So I thought the answer must be complete order. Whereas really, I think we like finding the middle ground, right? The anima and the animus and all of these things. So I agree with you. We can't just go back to just like dropping kids in the field. That's not going to work. But at the same time, if we know that there are these effects on the human psyche long term, why not find something that is better suited? You did mention something that I wanted to kind of prod about a bit, which you said, look, this challenges, let's say, the market, like the way we do our value structure, because the value structure is money. Personally, so I go to therapy fairly frequently. I mean, so I do spend money on therapy. Like, if there was a therapy that could help me unpack components of my subconscious and help me through that process, I would definitely pay money for it. So why would it not be profit-making?
No, it must be profit-making, because there is no motivation without spending money. If you are not paying to the specialist, you are not motivated.
Right.
So people are sort of calling and saying, listen, I do not have time today for your therapy. It's like as if a specialist need the therapy. Because it's devalued. Why does it happen? Because, again, the value in the society is the money.
Right.
So we have to use this tool as well. And a specialist, to be a psychologist or psychotherapist in a serious way, professional way, it's a hard destiny, you know. So you are full of stories of your patients. You are partly not living your own stories because you are involved into the field of the stories of your clients, your
Do you
patients.
have a way of dealing with that? Like, is there a way for you to puke out those stories?
Meditation.
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 Is it a particular kind of meditation, or is it just
I
stillness?
use meditation using number. It's called Maghha meditation. We have every Friday free class, so everyone can come at 7:30 at Sanya Spa in Nashar. So I'm not doing any advert about that because it's free.
Yeah, no, listen, why I couldn't care less. We don't mind on this show. Like, if it's good and people will benefit from it, we don't care.
So everyone, no need to book. So you're not obliged to come for every Friday to come. However, when you feel that you need support, it's there. Sometimes we have a few people. Sometimes the room is full. So it's the before Sanya, I was doing it at home, and many people know that.
When is that? Sorry, Friday 7:30.
So Friday 7:30, like
PM.
tomorrow PM. Yes.
Okay.
Tomorrow you are welcome to join. So sometimes we're discussing some interesting topics, spiritual topics, some stories, some Zen stories, or Vedic traditions, or sort of even some fragments from the Bible. So there is no religion way. This meditation do not provide any religious way. However, it's the tool. Once you know how to manage your mind, so you can cut, you can dissociate yourself with the others.
So, my holotropic experience, first of all, it was at Sanya. It was with Yaz. And like she said, like, even the way I approached the holotropic experience was just like, okay, let's go. And like in the matter of like 2 minutes, I was gone. And like I have to be the best meditator, you know. And the first thing I saw was my grandmother, right? Now, I'd like to point out that I'm not giving anyone any medical advice. I'm not a medical doctor. Like, this is me sharing my experience. So the first thing that came to me was my grandmother, who I have a very strong bond with. Like, she used to openly tell all the grandkids, John's my favorite, deal with it. Her name's Jane, I'm John. I'm not even named after her. I was named after my dad's dad. But somehow we share the same name, very similar disposition. She kind of bred in me this like, don't let people take advantage of you stuff, right? And what I saw, and my grandma's birth was very traumatic, by the way. Like, when she was born, they thought she was dead. So they left her, they just pulled her out of her mom, and they just dropped her on the chair and went on with their day. And then I don't know how they realized, like, she's turned purple like an aubergine, or she either started crying, I don't know exactly. But then they realized, oh wait, this human being's not dead. So my grandmother's archetype is 100% survivor, right? And then she went through like a complicated marriage with a really nice guy who became an alcoholic, and she wouldn't accept it, so she became violent. Very complicated. They lived in like very poor circumstances. And what my grandma was telling me was, during this experience, was like, listen, we suffered a lot. We suffered a lot because people in power took the piss. Because people in power insisted to lie to us. And because people were in our community bought those lies. the reason you get so angry when this happens is because that ruined my life, because I had to suffer my whole life. And you've inherited that pain. But then she just fucking disappeared. She didn't tell me what to do with the pain. She's like, there you go, now you know. And what do I do now? Do I stop being angry? Is my anger justified? Now, as I said, I have my reservations. So one part of me says maybe that's like a memory that I've actually downloaded in my DNA through my mom, and then my mom to me, and now I have this, right? And it's embedded in somewhere in my psyche. Another one is perhaps I'm just angry at the way things are run, and my brain, because it's imaginative and because I'm in this altered state, managed to kind of create this jigsaw puzzle to justify my anger. It's because your grandmother was pain, and look what a hero you are. Look how much virtue you have. You're defending your grandmother's honor. You're amazing. The other is like, bro, is there, because really it felt real. Like the other was, is there really a spiritual realm that I can't see? So for me, the jury is still out there. So maybe we'll have to do another couple of sessions where I can kind of tangle with that. I had another 2 experiences which I'm not willing to share in public because, as you know, it's quite a long process, and I went through points where I was just very angry, and then I was laughing. I was dancing. I never danced, but I was dancing, and I was crying, and I was dancing again. And then right after I met Julian, and we had a business meeting with a couple of guys we didn't really know, and I just walk in and I'm blank-faced. Like, I was shocked. That you could have that kind of experience without drugs. It's something that I was not prepared for. Because Yasmin said, just come over for some holotropic breathing. I didn't check what holotropic breathing was. Yeah. And I've done ice baths and Wim Hof and square breathing and all of this stuff. So I thought, we're just going to sit there for an hour and chill out. Mate, no, that was not the case. So, So Friday, 7:30 is when you do your meditation. Yeah. The holotropic experience.
Everyone is welcome. It's not holotropic.
It's not holotropic.
It's meditation. Yeah. About holotropic breathwork, the other word for holotropic breathwork is a Catharsis Therapy. Okay. So it's a healing through catharsis or awareness. Okay. So awareness with the expression. And this is why you want to dance, this is why you want to express, because it was a feelings of integration the other way. So it's a part that have been suppressed in you, so integrated into your whole consciousness. And this is why it's called holotropic. So tropics is an intention, drive towards wholeness, holotropic. So, during the sessions we use the quite evocative music, quite strong, So we use a particular breath type, and so we use the body work. So some assistants always do some body support. I don't know about your session, but usually this is the way. So I'm glad that you now talking about your experience, because many times people are sort of asking me about what is this, and it's very difficult to express when you never have experience. So I'm inviting everyone
to give it a shot,
to have to experience it, then, because you can be in touch with your subconscious part that you can never, even with the cannabis, you can never be in touch.
No, it's very different.
It's very different. Your mind will bring you the most needed part of yourself that have to be integrated.
Are there any dangers to holotropic breathing? And can everyone do holotropic breathing, or is it something where you have to be maybe psychologically a bit more mature?
Well, everyone can do it, but you have to be supported by a properly trained facilitator. So, because there are particular ways how to do so, And in the end, you have to integrate everyone to help to integrate, because if you will come with these pieces disintegrated, it can affect even your somatic health. So, for example, you can go into the blood pressure crisis. So, if you will not finish your integrative part, or if you will pass through some crisis, your perceptions will be so traumatic that you can even coincidentally harm yourself. So you won't be. It's like your body will be very clumsy. You will not feel the space around yourself. So it has to be integrated. Plus, for people who have a mental condition, I mean psychiatric condition, I will not recommend to do it, because it has to be done in a particular surrounding. So we do not know what part of your personality will be activated. It's still possible. And Stan Grove in his clinic, he deals with the schizophrenia, with the breath work. And I work a lot with the crisis therapy, as a crisis therapy, and sort of in this crisis catharsis to support people. However, sort of this part have to be done by specialists. Better if this person, the facilitator, will have even medical education. So the person who will be very experienced already. So people with epilepsy need to be careful. People with asthma need to be careful. It is possible to do, but usually I ask everyone, do you have asthma? Do you have epilepsy? So I know how to deal with that. And I accept this kind of people. However, sort of, you need to ask the facilitator, are you supporting people with asthma, for example? Yeah.
That's also very interesting to me. Like, when you're looking for these things, generally you're in a vulnerable state. Generally, when things are going fine, and you have mental equilibrium, you're not out looking for this therapy or that therapy or something that can make me feel better, something that needs to make me in touch with my child. So you're in a vulnerable state. Can you give advice to people that are looking to get to seek some sort of therapeutic help while they're vulnerable? Like, how do you choose?
Yeah.
Because I know I was in a very vulnerable state while I'm doing that.
It's more than naked, more than to be naked. So you're opening the sacred part of yourself, what is unknown even for yourself.
To yourself, exactly.
You do not know how to defend that part, and you don't have actually the energy to do so. So this is why, and it's not only about holotropic breath work, but it's about any kind of altered state of mind.
Yeah.
I know that many people experience with the psychedelics.
Yeah.
So watch out who is leading the group. What is the intention of this person? If you feel uncomfortable, leave the group.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I have some clients who have experienced the side effect of a very unprofessional way to support. You cannot, and they've been told that, oh, this is your path, you have to experience it. No, it's not. So if you are responsible for these people, you have to, sometimes you need to stay. Even there, with one of my clients, I stayed for over 24 hours after everything was over, but this person cannot integrate. So it was...
Cannot integrate? What do you mean? Cannot go back into his...
Cannot go back into his sort of balanced state. And so we did work. Yes, you have to do. If you take this instrument, so you need to understand that the sacrifice will be there as well. So with any kind of psychedelics, mushrooms as well. So you can.
To be honest, I'm terrified of psychedelics. I'm very much intrigued by psychedelics, but I know like the amount of work I had to do to get my brain to this balanced state that it is. That for me to just take a gulp of ayahuasca and then somehow wind up in a state. Maybe I regress, or maybe I wind up somewhere else. It's not this. I'm very concerned about that, which is why I thought holotropic was, for me, was a really kind of I'm not going to say it's the middle of the road because that experience is very full on.
But non-toxic.
But non-toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to return from it. Like the moment you, like they did a really good job. Like the moment we were kind of returning back to the integration part of the process, even physically, the music, the what was going on with, like, they covered you with sheets, so your body temperature returns to where it needs to be. And once the experience was over, I mean, sure, I was processing it for days, but I was completely functional.
Yes. No, I know Yasmin, she have a lot of experience in my groups. She have her own personal path. So you can trust someone who already experienced and who learn from some specialist. However, sort of with psychedelics, it's also psychedelics is very sacred practice,
Right,
and
yeah.
I'm absolutely
Yeah.
not against it.
Yeah.
And I actually have my own journeys on that. However, you need to understand the shaman in his own place, in his own land and the forest, or her own land and forest, and the shaman outside of his own culture, bringing some substances you do not know what the intention of this person. So
Yeah.
person came so we have to be very careful with that, and to trust to your own intuition.
What I'm perhaps willing to at some point participate in once my kids are older and they're no longer like entirely my responsibility, and like if I take that risk, it's entirely onto me, is like these controlled studies. I know that for example, like Stan Grof was at a point doing experiments with psychedelics at the Johns Hopkins University. That was like in the, I think, late 60s. That was.
Yeah.
And then you know what happened with the whole kind of rise
They
of the
haven't
war on
been
drugs.
allowed, yeah.
They criminalized it, but now it's been decriminalized again, and Johns Hopkins University is back at the forefront. The same university is back at the forefront of treating people that have, like, either gone through trauma or are going through traumatic experiences like terminal cancer and things of that nature, with very, very successful results. And again, for me, that's having the cake and eating it, kind of, because it's the balance, right? It's the medical portion with the psychedelic portion, and it's those two things kind of very carefully administered. And there's a lot, like when you hear these doctors speak, or there's a lot of reverence for it. There's a lot of respect for it. There's they understand the power of it, right? And I feel like some people really know how to wield that power slowly and with caution.
Yes, definitely. And so we have to remember that we shouldn't put out the baby together with the water, throw away the baby together with the water. So we have to sort of refine what is essential, what is not.
Yeah.
For example, like cannabis being legalized in Malta did a lot of harm to the young people. It's damaged their mind. So even though, like, scientifically it's proven it not makes people dependent, but I saw how it intoxicates their perceptions, instabilize their thing. And actually I spoke with a few really experienced smokers. They've been smoking cannabis for many years before it was legalization. And they said that they stop because it's not make them better. They feel the effect, so they matured, and they said, look, I do not need this dummy. So they call it.
This Damien?
Dummy.
Dummy. Oh, okay.
Dummy.
Right.
So I don't want to be disrespectful. Maybe for some people it's important because we are lacking for the cannabinoids. However, it have to be not the tool of indulgence.
Right.
So the problem with our civilization is the indulgence. The alcohol, is it good or bad? But we're indulging on alcohol. So our sexuality, it's a sacred tool. What we made from sexuality, we make a porno, we misuse it, we devalue that. So, and everything what human being touched So it devalues, depleted, and intoxicated. The food.
Right.
The food, the essential needs for daily life. So what we're doing, we're depleting the food. There is no nutrients in the food now. It's empty.
Yeah.
The prices are growing up, but the quality is going down because there is no nutrients. So now everyone is in a food supplement. Why should we eat supplements if we have the food?
Yeah.
Because it's empty food. So we do not receive what do we need.
Żur vini e kapriċi by Abram ġewwa Għawdex għall-lifjen ġobnijiet laħmijiet imbejjed kif ukoll wieħed mill-whiskies favoriti tiegħi il-Jericho tal-Lost Distillery. Idħol www.viniekapriċi.com.
Il-ħobża tal-Malti, il-ħobża tal-Maltin, minant il-Maypole.
So what do I really need in my daily life? I need not much. John, if you will ask a very poor person and very rich person, not much for both of them. Because we all want to be happy. We all want our children, if we are not mentally sick, we all want our children to have a better life than we live. So we want to eat good food.
Yeah.
We want to listen to good music.
Yeah.
So we have to laugh. We want to laugh. Our hearts need to laugh.
Yeah.
So we are looking for love, not for the ersatz.
For the, sorry?
Not for the ersatz. So it's like a fake part of love, but for true love. So we all knows what is this.
Yeah.
So this is why now a lot of talk about unconditional love. So we are looking for that. Everyone needs it. You can ask beggars on the street. You can ask the millionaires. All the same. But to be in touch with these real needs, we have to remove the masks of persona, what we sort of put in our faces, and we associated ourselves with that. So we have to find our authenticity, and our authentic nature is absolutely similar. We do not need to be separated, and it's enough food in the earth. It's actually a huge humiliation to keep people hungry in any culture, in any country, in the 21st century. It's a huge humiliation and disrespect for the civilization to make the wars. However, it's all happened.
Yeah.
So why? We are out of our authenticity as a human being. And what is our authenticity? Simply sit down and put it on the paper. What do I really need for my happiness? Simple. How to go there? Because some traumas do not allow me to go there. So I have to manage this trauma. So what should I do? I need to go for the psychology. I need to go to the meditation group. I just mentioned. There is no excuse not to come because it's free. It's open door for everyone. So if you need...
Why do you do it?
Why am I
What's your
doing?
incentive? Obviously not profit.
So because I'm 63. So for me it's important what I will leave behind. My generation make a lot of harm. Now what we're facing, it's the result of my generation. So I personally feel responsible for that, even though I never been involved and always was in the opposite side. So, however, still, I will do it until my last breath. It's my service towards the civilization, humanity. I'm doing it in many different countries. I'm giving a lot of free lectures, so a lot of programs, also free. Nobody's like paying me for the program. Why? Because people need to know. If I specialize, and I was lucky to get some knowledge, the knowledge will increase and the love will increase when you share it. Yeah. So you cannot keep love or knowledge.
Is that the highest value?
For me, it's the highest value.
Is that the highest value that we should have in society? Love?
Love. This is what we all need. All we need is love. Yes, John Lennon.
Yeah. It sounds like a platitude, but I think it's
Jesus said the same.
it's quite true, huh?
Yeah. So everything is very simple. When there is no love, we need the commandment. We need the law. Why do we need the law? Not enough love. Yes, we need the restrictions. We need the prisons, unfortunately, to keep people out of the society.
Yeah.
I prefer if instead of prisons, people will have a clinic for mental disorders.
Agreed.
And the treatment, proper treatment. And so, however, sort of it have to be done something.
Yeah.
Why? Because not enough love.
Yeah.
But our ego cannot not only to give love, but we cannot even
Receive,
accept.
yeah.
We cannot receive. We can only take. Yeah. The ego construction is like that because it's artificial. So I will take love.
In fact, one thing that kind of like instinctively my mind pushed back when you said was when you said if you speak to the beggar on the street and you ask if they want love, I think there is so many layers of persona there that they don't even realize that love is what they need. And I've worked in prisons, tough people in prisons, and what toughness is just layers, right? It's like layers to the core.
Absolutely.
And once you get there, like the moments that I've shared with those men, like crying, like our fucking heart out. It was some of the most religious experiences of my life, and not one of us mentioned the word God. It was just two men connecting and feeling each other's like compassion, like actual
So
compassion.
that is the religion. This is the essential spiritual part of the religion.
Yeah.
So it was a period of my life when I worked with police forces in the rejuvenation center with the soldiers after Afghanistan, Chechnya. So they becoming to be victim of the war, the same as the victims who they killed.
Yeah.
Because this traumatic experience to kill the other person, it's a very traumatic
Of course.
experience, psychological. You cannot be the same once you kill someone.
Murder, yeah.
You murder someone. So these people need deep rehabilitation and etc. But our society prefer to restrict. Yeah, it's a masculine way, brutal way to restrict, to isolate, to cut the human part. And so somebody can say, but what, you will forgive someone who did harm for you or for your beloved people? Will you forgive? I do not know, maybe no, or maybe it will happen not straight away.
Yeah.
However, sort of being a specialist on this field, it's definitely the view of a person is going into that part by trauma.
Yeah.
So,
I completely agree with you, and when I argued the same as you. So my take on it is I always like to refer to this prison in Norway called the Bastoy, whereby they have like a very similar approach. It's more of a clinical kind of approach, and they give prisoners there, like the worst kinds of prisoners you can imagine, a lot of dignity, and the outcome is that the recidivity, I always mess up this word, recidivity, like the amount of times that they, like the percentage of people returning to prison because they've done another crime is, I think, 16 or 17%, whereas in Malta it's like 70%. So obviously they must be doing something right.
It's like a
16%.
vicious circle.
It is the lowest. It's the lowest in all of Europe. So this pisses me off a bit because that's evidence, right? That's evidence that we should, at the very least, be looking into. Like why isn't, for example, our government just trying that with some of the prisoners? So let's see if this actually works for us as well. But anyway, that's just like one thing that is very frustrating for me. It's something that as a person, it's hard to accept. Me as a I want to say as a male, but as someone who thinks that no discipline, right? And I think there is place for discipline, and we have to have orders, and there has to be a certain amount of structure to the way we interface with each other and the social contract, and all of those clauses ought to be in place. But what I've learned in prison is that exactly it's trauma, right?
Trauma, yes.
And it's about, I think, I want to say 100%. Like, but many of the people that I dealt with in prison didn't have a father around.
Mm-hmm. One of my friend in England, he did a podcast with a woman whose father was blown up by the terrorist in Belfast.
Shit. Okay.
So this terrorists have been imprisoned for almost 20 years.
Right.
And after 5 years, this woman started visiting the prison, visiting this guy.
Right.
And in the 15 years, they developed such a relationship, they becoming to be a good friends.
Wow.
So when he finally was released, so she was the one who been meeting him in the end, and she was the one who hugged him, because he regrets so much in all these 20 years, not because of the prison, but because of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this woman was an example of the way of healing. Okay, somebody can say, so it was the guy who had this compassion, but not everyone is like that.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time people are doing crime under the influence of intoxication. So it's drugs or alcohol. So not many people are murdering each other when they are in a clear mind.
Yeah.
So, and we have to look for that. Why the alcohol is so accessible for young people? Why it's so easy? We know already that the highest percentage of crime is not coming when people are smoking marijuana, but after in the alcohol state. Why alcohol is still very accessible?
Yeah.
Because it's profitable. Everyone knows the answer.
One of the counter arguments for that is that I think it was the 20s. When was the prohibition? When did the prohibition stop? So, in America they tried the prohibition, and what happened was it was a disaster because so end of prohibition is 1933.
That's when they went on prohibition.
In 33? No. So in 1920. America officially went dry. Prohibition embodied in the U.S. Constitution's 18th Amendment banned the sales, manufacture, transportation of alcohol, etc., etc. So this is very complicated. So one, historically you had an issue where, the government prohibited alcohol, and what happened was the same way it happens with drugs. Al Capone and people of that ilk stepped in and thought, okay, no problem, we'll take care of that. And you create a black market, and you create essentially what we have with cocaine and everything else. But my take is that things like alcohol could be neutral if we didn't have what you're calling traumas, what I would call like anxieties, that would make me, rather than just like enjoy, a couple of shots of whiskey with my friends, would make me want to go through the whole bottle so I forget my name by the end of it, right? I think that is the problem. And I think there are two kind of continuums that are working opposite each other, which are kids are maturing later, intellectually, emotionally, socially, but we're allowing them to do things earlier. Like, if you're emotionally not mature, the last thing you need is porn in your life. If you're intellectually not mature, the last thing you need is weed in your life. Same goes for whiskey, same goes for these clutches, right? Yeah. So we have these two things that are countervailing each other, and the axis of that is, well, the disaster that we're seeing now with I think since 2012, the suicide rates in teenagers in America, I think tripled, man. That's, what you're talking about. That's
Yeah, it's a lost authenticity because people are mixed up. Young people are mixed up who they are. So they do not want to be like a robotized body and creatures. So, and they feel that like a dead end of if they will not succeed, if they don't have a Lexus for a particular age. It's just an example. So they are not good enough for life. They are all failure. So this is idea of failure is very strong in the society as well. I can tell you that, for example, in Russia, when there are economical crises, every time government makes alcohol very cheap.
Of course. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. There's a book out, and I really recommend it. To be honest, I heard the podcast by Coleman, who's an African-American philosopher, very young guy, very smart guy. And he has a book, he had a guest on called Jean Twenge. And she wrote a book called Generations. And she did a study of all of these surveys that were being collected since the 30s about mental well-being. Like they included very kind of basic questions like, how included do you feel in the society? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel like your life's going well for you? And I think Pew was conducting these researches over many, many, many years. And what was found was that the happiest generation and the least anxious generation is the silent generation, which is that born, I believe, 1939, I want to say. 1939 till about 45. So these people were born like at the tail end of a depression and in the middle of a war. But those two things apparently made the community like closer together. Like they didn't have money. Like money was not at the top of their value structure for sure. It was community. It was working together, like that togetherness.
Consolidation to survive.
Consolidation to survive. Yeah.
So
Listen,
that is what happened.
It's a really interesting, a really, really, really interesting book. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but that note should tell you that material wealth is definitely, cause like, guys, at the end of the Great Depression, right? Material wealth and happiness, human happiness, are not necessarily corollaries. In fact, there's evidence that they might be the opposite. I mean, I hazard to say that because I can't see myself being happy if I was like materially poor and I couldn't provide for my kids. Like I'd be, probably as a male, I'd be very confused. Right?
No, of course, it's an important part. Just a question of not to make it as a priority, but you cannot not make it as a priority because you are living in the society when it's very important. You have to pay for that.
Yeah.
In other way, you just simply will lose something important. About the alcoholization, I just want to mention why sort of like mostly men, even women alcoholism is very high, but men love to use the alcohol because the alcohol, this kind of alcoholic intoxication, brings people in touch with the feminine aspect, with this anima aspect. So people becoming to be relaxed.
Yeah.
They're easy to forgive each other.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're very brutal, but I mean, after the intoxication, so they feel easy. Yeah, everyone is brother, you saw the behavior on the street. So people becoming to be noisy, but sort of many times they're singing the songs all together, the brotherhood. So they being in touch with that part that in daily life they suppress many times. Until someone will sort of press the button and then they becoming to be aggressive to protect this anima, internal anima. And maybe we need to say about that in our society, civilized society, this archetypal figure have been repressed. We live in a patriarchal society for a long, long time. Now we have another side, another polarity is developing, the feminization of the society. Yeah? So when many women becoming to be in power and they take the positions, so the feministic movement is growing up, but it's the same male's method. So just the society call it, some women have the balls bigger than the man. So it's an arrogant expression, but it's very common expression. But it's very reflective expression because it's absolutely true. The way is going into the masculine, with the masculine intention. And what are them? So I would like to speak a bit about the qualities of both of them, because this is what makes people to look for each other, to make the relationship.
Yes. So, look, in fact, I had kind of circled this portion of the conversation. I'd like to end the conversation with this, because then my Patreons have some questions for you. But this portion, I would really like to get into the whole divine masculine, divine feminine. Yeah. You said before something that was very interesting to me, and we didn't really go deep into it, which was to fulfill the masculine archetype, you have to integrate the divine feminine, and that's kind of like a requisite. And I want to understand what you mean by that. I wonder if that's also tied into the fact that nowadays we're seeing the question of like what is a man is like a really big question, and you know there's far more kind of openness about people being gay or men being transgender, and does that tie into them looking to kind of integrate this feminine part into the masculine psyche? All of these questions. So like I know I asked you like 50 questions, but let's just make it like that's the chapter. Right? So just pick the opening sentence and we'll just take it from there.
Look, I will speak from Jung's point, not from my personal, So just to make it clear that it's not my ideas, but it's sort of have a authority behind. Of course, I agree with that if I am expressing it. However, there is a sort of quite deep, it was done deep research by Jung and followers of his. So from the ancient time, we received the knowledge in the scriptures or in some pictures as well, that people understand that human beings have an androgenic nature. So we have a masculine part and feminine part. And so from the medical point, you see we have males' hormones and females' hormones in one body. So everyone as a fetus passing first to be a feminine, and then the Y chromosome is appearing. So then it's a separation between the females and the male's fetus. But for some particular, until particular age of the fetus, so we are all equal. In a spiritual level, of course, there is no gender.
Right.
So like we are all connected to the spiritual aspect, etc. However, like according to many things, somebody said according to your karma, somebody said according to your destiny. So whatever you believe, the system of beliefs, you receive this body, in a male's or female's body. This is your physical authenticity. Of course, there are many traumas that can affect your perceptions, self-perceptions. And so if we include the regression into the past life, what Jung being in India and being very impressed by Indian culture and the idea of reincarnations, he found it's also in a lot of apocryphic evangelies, Christian evangelies, apocryphal, what is not accepted by the, as you know, this
the central teaching
the
of
central
the church.
teaching, So that it's written that Jesus accepts the idea of reincarnation. So again, I do not want to argue about it. I just bringing the fact about the investigation.
So did Jung believe in reincarnation, or
Yes, of course.
he believed that we return to?
Yes. Again, it's a choice of beliefs and studying, and also it's a part of your culture, spiritual culture, how you was brought up. And but when you're seeing your own life and you're comparing with the life of other people, you definitely can see that we all not started from 0 point. So somebody was started with this level of quality, somebody was born with that opportunity, somebody was born with a very big lack of opportunity, with the deficiencies of simple basic needs. So it shows that we begins not from the beginning. Right?
Sure.
So it's not it's clear if you just will use your mind. So because of that, we have to understand that of course we are attached to our memory. It's you can call it spiritual memory of your previous reincarnations, and there is a therapy or suggestive hypnosis that can lead you into this state. Do I believe for that? It's not a religion for me. It's not proven. However, I read many books of colleagues who did a particular regression therapy, and it was a period of my life when I did it professionally because I studied it as well. And I was impressed, and I have my own reincarnations, like memory. For example, like I'm sure you will be curious, for many years I was afraid of the Alsatian dogs, for many, many years. And exactly this type of dogs, I was like freezing, even being an adult, being a mother already, being a psychiatrist and a psychologist, I cannot deal with this phobia. And so then I have this regressive therapy, and I found that one of my experience, one of my reincarnation was in a concentration camp, where I died because these dogs really ripped me into the pieces. So
you had that experience where you could see yourself?
Yes, I had this experience of regression. Again, somebody can say, oh, it's a fantasy. I will not argue. So, but when the same like with the holotropic breathwork, until you experience, there is nothing to discuss about. So let's experience first, and then we will speak about it. So if we will speak...
But for you were persuaded that
I persuaded, because when I realized it, when I saw it, it's much... I can even play now with these dogs. So when I realized that I integrate a lot, so I passed through some time, because as you know, we have neurons connections that when we sort of have a particular pattern of behavior, it's difficult just to change it to a pathway. However, sort of if you practice, if you being conscious on that for 21 days, so there are transformational processes are going on in your nervous system where you can transform your reaction. You can bringing your awareness into the subject. And it have happened with me. Why? Because I knew the methods. So people who do not know the methods, they're going to the specialist. During our meditation, sometimes we're talking about it at one of the questions. So how can I change something what is inside of me? Why I touch this aspect? Because in some, you can call it soul's memory. So we've been in a body of the opposite gender. So, and we've been very strong, we've been very, very effective in life. So we attach to these qualities. And like the memory, people saying, I don't know why do I know this. Like, for example, some people are touching something, some sword. So they touch it and they knew already how to use it. How do they know? What's the skill is coming from? So it's coming from some memory. You can call it morphogenetic field. You can call it genes memory, DNA memory. You can call it biological field. So whatever you can call it. However, it's a fact. Or, for example, like in India, some children, they are saying they remember their previous life. So I saw the child who have been challenged with that. So the challenge brought them to the place, explain what's the house, so how it look like. So and it was proven that it was exactly according to the child's memory.
I heard Joe Rogan. So my personal experience with that is minor. In that, so for example, the way my daughter sits, how she puts her elbow on the table and how she puts one finger on her cheek is exactly how my grandma did it. Like, and then if I say something that she disapproves of, the way she looks at me, like, I know this is bullshit, is exactly like my grandma. So I know like that can be, for sure, that can be inherited somehow. I don't know if that's like an imprint of the genes, but I don't know how it's done. But I see it happen.
The reasons can be different. However, sort of we cannot neglect this fact.
Yes, the fact is there. I think it merits more study and yeah.
Yes,
But the other kind of little anecdote that I heard, you know, Joe Rogan, this guy who does a podcast.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about how his daughter, like he used to do a lot of kickboxing when he was younger, and like his daughter just knew how to like kick the bag in a very particular way that takes generally at least many months to master. But he just like stood her up in front of the bag, and she just like did a side kick. I forgot what it was, but she just knew how to do it. And he was very amazed at that because, like me, Joe has a very skeptical mind. Yeah. So he's like, "How did that happen? You know, you need a timeout."
Can I?
Yes, sure. Mawra sal-ħadnu ta' Derek mhux tranzazzjoni kif ġipu laħaq fejn apparti tinqeda b'lifjen kwalità se tiġi mejjun sabiex issawar l-arfin tiegħek dwar dak li qed tiekol u titma' lil familtek. Biss jekk m'għandekx il-ħin tad-disa fejnhom il-belt, ibad WhatsApp lil Derek fuq 9986-6425 biex waslulek ix-xirja fuq l-adba. Apex Media huma esperti fil-kamp tal-SEO għal snin sħaħ huma għenu l-klijenti tagħhom sabiex jitilgħu fil-quċċata ta' tfittxija tal-Google jekk inti qed tfittex outreach links, PBN builds, konsulenzi u kwalunkwe xorta ta' servizzi relatati ma' SEO mela kellem l-Apex Media. All right, welcome back from the break. So, listen guys, just so everyone's aware, like it's midnight here. So we're gonna close up this episode. I'd like to later, maybe in private, maybe you guys won't get to see it, to discuss a bit more kind of like the integration of the anima into the masculine. I also have questions like, just because the society is patriarchal, does that make it by definition a bad thing, or is it like good and bad, like a neutral thing? Not a neutral, but it like gives you some bad stuff, gives you some good stuff, and now what?
Yeah, look.
The microphone a bit closer.
When we've been in a state of surviving, so we are consolidate, females and males being.
Right.
Yes, men are sort of doing their things, going to the war or fighting and hunting,
right.
And women are taking care of the house and bringing life, more and more life.
Yeah.
And actually the war is a huge insult for women.
Right.
As a sort of the, not exactly matriarchal part, but as a whole structure, because when you, for 9 months, you're carrying the life inside of you. It's developed from each cell of this life developed from your own body.
Yeah.
Then you're giving birth.
Yeah.
Then you dedicated yourself.
Yeah.
And then your dear child have to be sent to the war
Yeah.
to protect somebody's interest, political, financial, etc. So it's a huge humiliation of femininity. I found it.
Yeah.
I'm not a feminist. However, sort of we have to revalue this part. It's not normal to have the war. It's not normal to run the society anymore by patriarchal way of suppression, limitation, and sort of restrictions. So we have to include female's quality that shouldn't be counted as a weakness. Many men do not want to be in touch with their inner woman because simply they do not want to look like weak. Yes, so perceptivity is counted as a weakness. So emotional development, or now we call it emotional intelligence, can be
Could you describe
counted.
perceptivity?
Perceptivity is like you are sensitive to many things. Like you sensitive for that, and you can feel that. And so the idea of a man, of a brutal man, is like a machinery to survive, to suppress. But it's not like that. As we discussed before, it brings immature malehood. The infantile generations. But when man is in touch with this female, the anima part, and this is actually what man is looking for. When man is looking for really his second part, is looking for that part.
Yeah. My kind of instinctive reaction when it comes to the kind of like trusting the gut. I've had experiences, and particularly where there's women in the group, and they say, I have a good feeling about this. No, I have a good feeling about this. Listen, this let's do a deal with this guy, and then like 3 months down the line, you're like, yeah, well, we just blew 3 months of work.
Yeah.
So I like to measure things, and look, the gut is generally there is intuition there that tells you whether this guy is a good or bad person. And I've had moments where I didn't rely on my gut because I couldn't see the data, and then 6 months down the line, yeah, that's what I was picking up but couldn't express. But I think doing perceptivity alone, I think perceptivity is a good radar. It's good, like. Okay, look, I'm not feeling like this is a good relationship or like this is a good path to pursue. Let me examine why. I think one without the other is...
Exactly, the consolidation.
The consolidation is...
John, the unity. So this is why it's important that we need for each other to make a harmony. A zero... Yes, where the male have the minuses, women have the pluses, and where the men have the pluses, women have the minuses. So this exactly makes us like on a zero. So to be in zero, it doesn't mean to be empty. It means to be whole. Yeah. And to be satisfied. Yeah. And to work together.
Yeah.
So, of course, women are also intoxicated nowadays, intoxicated with a lot of information, with the indulgence, with the food, even with the alcohol, with many things. Yes. So I'm not telling that one gender is better than the other gender, but I'm telling that sort of the way of patriarchy is going down. Why? Because no needed anymore. So the civilization is tired from wars, tired. Yeah. So we are more looking for the chances for our next generation to survive. Yeah. So everyone understands now that we are in a turning point when we, if not now, so then what will happen? We can lose another civilization.
And I think technology has technology and our institutions, with all their flaws that they have, don't require us to have the violent man around, so to speak. Like, my wife doesn't essentially need me around the house in case someone's going to decide to kick the front door down and, and rob her. There's we have police for that. We have the laws for that.
Yeah.
There's maybe if she needs a gun, she can get a gun. And there's enough technology that the masculine, that brutal masculine part is no longer required. So I kind of see that there was a point that I think you were working towards, which is there was a point in our survival story where like you needed more masculine people to be outside of the house, and we were, first of all, like predators. Secondly, like there was a lot of very difficult manual labor to be done that men had to do. Thirdly, we were very skeptical of anyone else that belonged to a different tribe. Like first it was just like family against family. Then we started trusting a few families, became a tribe. Then we started trusting a few tribes, became a country. And now we're a bit like, listen, this is a bit stupid.
Yeah.
We're all far more similar than we are different. Let's try to kind of start cooperating more, because when there's cooperation and harmony, you get advancements in technology, medicine, so on and so forth. So as we're saying, like men are kind of like being always pushed more to the margin in terms of needing that brutal masculine
Yes, you
approach.
can be authentic. You doesn't need to be brutal.
Yeah.
No need to be a terminator.
Yeah.
So you can be authentic yourself with all this male nobility, what is really attractive, what many women are looking for, the noble character, the person who can admit the mistakes. Yes, I did mistakes. No one is perfect. We are coming out of trauma.
Yeah.
So we can lie each other just because it's habitual.
Yeah.
So if you have enough compassion inside, forgive.
Yeah.
If you cannot forgive, just there is no reason to blame. So if there is a rejection, so just educate yourself. Why are you rejecting? Maybe it was your relationship with the father that you project. Maybe your father figure was so heroical that no man compared to that. So as you know this, so some women are like this. All the men, for example, cannot find the anima simply because the mother was such a goddess figure that you cannot find someone who will satisfy your needs. However, if we stop looking for the mother or for the father, and when we understand just we are living our own life, to heal the trauma first, of course. And so we will be more authentic. We will finally start to live not out of trauma, but out of our own nature.
Yeah.
And what is our nature? And what is influence our nature? It's about gender as well. Unfortunately, this toxic food and drinks and life, what we're using, influence us not only mentally, but also physically in the body. So our endocrine system is really in danger.
Yeah.
So our thyroid gland, as you know, this autoimmune thyroiditis is very common. So the adrenal glands producing too much cortisol.
Yeah.
So then we have a problem of infertility because our reproductive system do not work properly.
Testosterone in males over the last 60 years, please. It's a disaster.
Yes, and what is the cause? It's all together toxic life.
Yeah.
Cool. So why all of a sudden does it happen? Because what's the solution? To stop using the toxins, so to come back to your basics, to come back to your natural root. Authentic food, authentic lifestyle, authentic water. And again, our needs are not very high. We do not need 1 million costumes. So we need just a few clothes to change. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just a smiling heart, so to make our mood. So we know someone is waiting for us, someone loves us, our partner, our wife and husband, our children. So we know our parents, they find. So we have this, there is no danger, we do not afraid to have a bomb. So human beings do not need much. Yeah. However, in our sort of what we create, this is the result of our shadows, the suppressed anger, and this is the result what we have to face.
Okay, did you find the trend of the last 50 years or 50 or 60 years?
The estimated cross-sectional decline in total testosterone level was 0.4% per year of age. The longitudinal within-person decline was about 1.6% per year. The age-matched time trend was 1.2% lower per year.
But I think that is like how a man experiences the testosterone depletion, not like historically. Generational decline in testosterone levels observed. Trend does not seem... But during the past 2 decades, testosterone levels in America have declined, and American men have declined rapidly. We'll pull up a link and put it in the description. But I'm sure it's like something...
But why do we need to
excessive.
mention the America? So take Malta. So the obesity. Obesity is endocrine metabolism disorder. You know this.
Yeah.
So how to deal with that? Change the way of eating.
Yeah, we're
So-
also very sedentary, and we want to drive everywhere, and we have terrible eating habits. I think also, I had read that even cortisol contributes to your endocrine system going like out of whack in other areas. So like if you're constantly stressed,
If you constantly stress, of course.
like your body's constantly thinking, oh shit, the famine's coming. So you get like...
Exactly. So it's extra fat. It's
Yeah.
a sort of the result, compensative result of defense of the body. The body is trying to survive.
Yeah.
So there is a funny to fight with the obesity. So instead of dealing with the habits of eating and going to the cause, what makes you obese?
Yeah.
So just to lose weight, it's not the question.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, maybe it's the question. So this is why the new industry is coming out, as you know, to cut part of your stomach, so you will reduce, etc. It's very traumatic way. And unfortunately, I lost few people. I know there's few people who did this kind of operations. So it's a horrible way of sort of chop you on the pieces. Again, I'm not propagating, but there are many different natural ways how to deal with it.
Of course.
Yes, but you
Of
have to
course.
be very patient, much more patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Then you can restructure. The fashion industry that only skinny and this kind of guys that is in fashion. So if you are not in the standard, skip it. It's not the way. So we are all different. We have different constitutions. We have different body constitutions, the mind, the emotions. So it's a complex.
Yeah. I'll say this one last thing. Like I had recently I had to take my daughter to the hospital at like midnight, and I watch what I eat, you know. But at like 2 or 3 a.m., I'm starving. So I look around and there's vending machines. And in the hospital of Malta, with patients that are the most obese possibly in the world, where diabetes is through the bloody roof, the only things you find in the vending machines is chocolates, croissants, Coca-Cola, the end. Like there was nothing for me to consume. And obviously people that are less educated about their diet are just going to go, oh, whatever, I'll just have 2 Mars bars because I'm hungry at 5 in the morning. Terrible. And then, you know, on the tail end of that, those people are going to go back through the system, and then we're going to give them insulin, and then maybe they're going to have some devastating surgery because they have no circulation in their toe. But it's okay, we'll nurse you with some more Kit Kat. And it just keeps going around and around
Yes,
and around.
it's a vicious circle.
Pathetic.
Vicious circle. So the food industry preparing the clients for the medical industry, the medical industry preparing the clients for the pharmaceutical
But you would
chronic
expect
condition.
the state to go, okay, guys, shut up. Like, stop. Like no more like sugars in the vending machines. We're gonna give you. There's so much out there, you know. Like recently, I've discovered this like sourdough. It's amazing, man. It's tastes fantastic.
Yes, and it's like the lactobacillus bacteria, what we mostly needed. Bifida and lactobacillus bacteria as a probiotics.
I feel so good after I eat it, like with just some simple olive oil, maybe a bit of cheese. Like, can we just have that? Can we just have that? You know? And instead, you're just pouring this crap down people's throats that's making them sick, making them fat. And it's not just the endocrine system. Like I had, you know, aunts that were obese, like the problem with their hips, with their knees, with their self-esteem. They need help. Like when they become of old age, they need help just to go to the toilet. It's very undignifying. Anyway, so listen, let me stop ranting about the dire situation at the mater-day vending machines. And we're going to go to il-patruni jistaqsu, which translates to the Patreons ask. U naddu issa għal-patruni jistaqsu miġuba lilkom mill-bibtana tal-Browns jekk forsi qed iżidu xi piż b'mod involontarju qed tħossu li s-sistema diġestiva hemm xi problemi fiha. Jew dal-aħħar b'mod eżaġerat qed jaqbadkom abtitat sokkor jista' jkun li dawn huma kollha problemi relatati mal-gatt għal daqstant nirrakkomanda li tgħaddu sa waħda mill-outlets tal-Browns u tistaqsu dwar il-gut care. Aressa tlaqna jienu Lidia bil-patruni jistaqsu. And I have the first question. Comes from Kylie, our goddess with the long nails and the sharp tongue. For people interested in having a stronger awareness of what's happening in their minds and why, what other recommendations would you give apart from meditation? Maybe reading a specific book or adding a certain habit to their daily routine. Ask Google, you mean?
No, Google can answer. But what
no,
is the...
because we have a joke, because like sometimes she asks me questions, and I just go, ask Google, why ask me? In fact, my name on her phone is saved as Ask Google, I think. Yeah. So no, don't ask Google on this one. We're going to ask you.
So, well, of course, different people have different ways. And what is good for you maybe will be not good for someone else. So we have a choice. Like, I'm not a rigid, restricted specialist. However, there are plenty of different tools. First of all, be more creative. So the creativity is a part of the femininity. So because creativity involves the intuition, the aesthetics. Yeah. So it's your inner anima. Yeah. So when you're in touch with that, like for example, many years ago, I have an amazing illustrations of how does it work with a group of people after the holotropic breathwork. Usually we start to paint mandala.
Oh, cool.
Now I'm doing neurographics. So if you will come to my groups of breathwork, so we will paint the special mandalas with the neurographic meaning. So you can, after the breathwork, you can for 21 days, you can continue with this practice to transform your experience. And this guy, already before the pension, he was all his life as the accountant. Boring, very gray guy, so was aging slowly but gradually. So boring life from morning till evening. All of a sudden, after the breathwork, he started to draw. Then he started painting. Then, after a couple of years, he called me and he said, Dr. Lidia, I want to invite you for my personal exhibition. So it was a huge catharsis of his life, expression, rediscovering. Wow. So maybe not everyone can achieve that, but I have many people who discover themselves through that expression. So maybe that is one of the way. So or dance. John, as you mentioned, during the holotropic breathwork, you want to express it through your movement. This spontaneous movement is another amazing thing.
Yeah.
So some people discovered many different talents that all of a sudden some awareness is bringing. Some people discovered that they shouldn't do what do. They want to go into the healing, for example, or into the study, and they start to question, what is Ayurveda? I'm interested. Ayurveda is the mother of the medicine. All pharmaceutical medicine came out from Ayurveda. Veda is the knowledge. So Ayurveda
Like the
used
first
the plant.
generation medicine, let's say?
Yes, thousands of years ago. So, and now we have a synthetic pharmaceutical industry. They don't even mention Ayurveda, but in India you can see it. And so this word is very common. It's the way of natural medicine, naturopathic way. The food preparation, how to prepare the food and do not kill the quality of the food is another thing. And like, for example, when I had Anga Cafe, we did every week our workshop, Eating for Healing. So how to heal yourself by eating the right food, the right preparation. Let's not kill it. Let's understand that, for example, the Teflon is not a healthy solution. So use the pot of terracotta, for example. Your grandmother, many of my students, they told me, oh, you know, my grandma did exactly like that. So go to your generation when they're alive. So ask them, what do they do? In Malta, there are many healing plants. You have sage, you have fennel, anise seeds, you have what else? Marjoram, you have even parsley, you have celery. This is all healing plants. So lavender, it's growing. So, and you have these herbs all year round. So why do you need this sachet of the tea with the microplastic if you have such a plant that when you will drink this kind of tea, so you will really feel after the meal satisfaction instead of bloating. So this is small details. However, people need to know about that.
Yeah.
So, and this is how you can make your system better and more functioning and being more in balance. You just need to find your own stuff and to deal with that, to learn more about it, and that's the way.
Yeah, for me, what's definitely been a life changer was meditation. Once I discovered meditation, my life changed literally that day.
Meditation is medication.
Jesus Christ, man. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe like my brain could function that way. Like it could see things in like far slower frames. Oh my God.
Yes, but it's not easy. So be patient with yourself. Sort of when you meditate, come and learn something, and do not skip very quickly. Oh, I cannot manage. I don't have enough patience. It's okay. It takes time. So give to yourself at least 21 days, and then decide, is this way of meditation good for you or not? So listen to the good music, not the music that is distracting your mind, not very loud, not very raw. So listen more harmonious music. Like, for example, Mozart is discovered as very good for the babies, even when the baby is in the fetus state.
I remember my son was like obsessed with Mozart first. Like when he was 5, he could like sit, like we'd play him any Mozart song, piece of music, and be like, that's the Requiem from, and then after Mozart he went into Beethoven, and after Beethoven was the Beatles, and now he really listens to terrible music.
Yes, but so he is like absorbing all the spectrums, So, however, like we need to be very hygiene with the decibel. So we have to be hygiene not only for our mouths and what we eat and to wash everything, but we have to be hygienic with whom to deal, what to listen, what to watch. what information to absorb, because there are many misinformed, fragmental information that lead you in the wrong directions, and then we make our solution on that.
Yeah.
And then sort of we are entangled with something. Yeah. So clarification is the way of doing things. But start with something very, very simple, like rosemary tea. Like not everybody knows that the aging people, for the aging people, rosemary is one of the best solutions. Rosemary oil, rosemary tea, it's improved the memory. It makes people feel secure.
Okay.
So it's strengthening the aura of the energy. So it's really good way. So
okay, how do we make rosemary tea? Okay, because I've never tried any of this, like these herbs.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I've never, it was never a thing that was like, yeah, that I'll try. But now I'm curious.
Yeah, take
So
just
let's say I wanted to try rosemary tea. What do I do?
Take 2 or 3 branches, small branches of rosemary. And if you like also the mint flavor, you can put there, or melissa. Or if you want just rosemary, you just simply put there. Use not boiling water. The water that now everyone have a glass kettles. So when the water just start to produce the bubbles,
Okay.
so it's the right temperature, put it into the pot and give just a few minutes. So when you're preparing the other stuff, your tea will be ready.
Okay. Tomorrow, structural meeting, bring rosemary.
So even you can do it as a cold infusion, like you in the evening you can put it in the cold water, and in the morning it will be ready. Just in a jar of water, and it's ready from the rosemary.
Kylie's kind of like on a mission. So is there a book we can recommend for her where she should,
So
you feel like she should try?
So I recommend to everyone, but maybe it's not easy in the beginning. It's a lot of technological and quite biochemical side, conscious eating by Dr. Kazan. So it's one of the really good authority for me, Dr. Kazan.
Conscious eating.
Gabriel Kazan.
Gabriel
yeah.
Kazan's.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Did you get my book? I'm remembering. You got it? It's here? Oh, it's not here. What book did you get me? She's meant to get me Jung, right? Yeah. I'm binging on Jung again, thanks to you. And it was really special because I was in Assisi for the last 4 days. My God. And like, at the basilica, at the exit of the basilica, there's a huge mandala. Huge mandala. Like I was like trying to research. I asked one of the monks, like, why is there a mandala? It's like, what's a mandala? Like that fucking thing over there, that's a mandala. Like, why is it that it's also in this culture?
Il-podcast ta' John huwa proġett indipendenti u ħieles mill-influenzi tal-partit il-kbar u l-lobby groups li jorbitawhom. Bekk jista' jibqa' jiġi mtella biss jekk inti tgħin. Jett nappellalek biex iżżur il-ħolqa ta' fuq jew jekk qed issegwi lil mill-YouTube billi tidħol ġewwa patreon.com/John Mallija u tina daqqatit. Tinsiex, il-podcast ta' John huwa l-podcast tagħna بدك خدوها قفصها bro.
Yes, there are people who achieve the archetype of self. We call them saint.
Yeah.
So because they found the divine part of themselves, the sparkle, where they can integrate their shadows, they accept their shadows. So the problem with the shadows, that we suppress it, we cannot integrate it, we punish it, we judge it. So, and then we never allow ourselves to accept this part of ourselves. No one is ideal. So we have to understand it until we are in a human body. We're making mistakes. In our life, we're learning by mistakes. So this is why it's important to forgive to ourselves. When you forgive to ourselves, then you can forgive the others. If you can see your own state. If it's not easy for you to forgive others, then you need to question yourself. Yeah. So how I'm dealing with myself? Maybe I'm too restrictive. Maybe I'm cutting out some part of myself, just simply my rationalization, because I must be like that. Yeah. So because sort of the love attitude is full of gratifications and so softness, flexibility, absorption, and unity. So we need to be conscious about it. It's a time to be the truth, not to lie to ourselves. So our heroes now, the part of the heroes is coming from within. We are not anymore oriented, and we are not anymore even attracted much. Many people more and more aware that I want to be myself. I'm not interested to be someone else who my parents want me to be. Like I want to be an artist, but I have to be a judge, for example. So I passed through the university because my parents want me to be, because our family follows this way. So, or somebody pushed me to play the violin, but I hate it. So I want to be someone else. I want to paint, for example. So we need to find what is our authenticity and to do. Very good method also, the sound healing.
So the path to finding authenticity, I think it's possible. Not obviously, but I think it's possible. But I think, and we discussed this briefly back in Sunny, I think we discussed this or the time before, where the path to authenticity, I think a lot of people nowadays mistake it, right? I think a lot of people have hang-ups and they have anxieties and they think that whatever they do that makes that anxiety feels better is what they ought to be doing, and they're being true to themselves. But I think in order to be authentic, first you need to kind of clean up all the portions of your psyche that are injured and nurse those. And that is where your true self can emerge, and that's where you can start to follow the path.
Yes, it is. But when you started, you can see how huge and long path you have to go. So it disencourages many people. So that is why some methods like a catharsis are quite a strong breakthrough and very fast. So there are some methods that are slow working, like for example verbal way of psychology, psychotherapy, like psychoanalysis. It's an endless story, as you know. However, it helps many people, but it makes many people stuck on the same vicious circle. There are many other methods in our era that we should use. I'm telling this not as an advertisement of myself. You can go to many different specialists. Now many people honestly inspire doing their work. So use for something, look for something effective. So read the testimonials, so listen to the people, see what the specialist, what background have the specialist, and look not much for education, but for the years of experience. The more this person experience on some particular way, the more sort of this person will get the practical knowledge and know more how to get how to help you.
There's also the kind of issue that we were discussing earlier, which is shamans that are abusive. So, like, one would have to find, like, part of the selection process is also kind of how to weed out people that pretend they are something when really they are in it for something completely different than
Look,
what they're telling you, which is-
the shaman is also archetypal. Actually, if you will see the tarot cards, this is all about archetypes. The emperor, empress, the fool,
the
so
devil.
everything is archetypal.
Yeah.
The god, because as you know, so it's an archetype invented by human mind, the projections. Because definitely God is not what we put in our pictures.
Of course.
So it's something what is beyond of our understanding
Of
and
course.
perceptivities. So yes, the question is how to make ourselves more integrative. It means more perceptive, more honest, more flexible with ourselves, less judgmental, because this judgmental attitude is this is what kills us. We separate ourselves, we chopped ourselves into pieces. And then it's very uncomfortable to feel yourself bad. So then we suppress it, we skip it.
Yeah. I think I do that a lot.
We're all in the same shoes, because sometimes this part of ourselves is on the way for us, like we have to look cool, but in the same time some archetype is screaming over there. So to have this shaman archetype is very attractive. Yeah, so you can take over a lot of people, so pretend that I'm
There's like a
that.
messianic
Exactly.
archetype
You're
there.
absolutely right. This messianic tendency now is quite big trap for the ego.
Did you watch that Poor Country? Oh, what's the name of that documentary? Old Country? About that Indian guy that went to Utah. Wild Country. Wild Country. It's a crazy documentary. So Aaron De Manuele, which is the hairy guy over there, where is he? There he is. Can you explain? Jesus, bro, it's midnight. Can you explain Jung's concept? Look, we're gonna take one of these questions. Come here. Enter the realm. So, bro, we're gonna close this episode with one last question of yours, but you're gonna have to pick one.
I pick one? Okay.
Yes.
I pick the first one.
The first. Okay. Can you explain Jung's concept of synchronicity?
Yeah. So the word synchronicity can absorb now knowledge not only on Jung, but also can take even the quantum physics to prove it. So what is the synchronization? Is what we feel it affects us. So what is resonate with our own material, our system of beliefs, our system of value, and with our own experience. Sometimes our own experience is getting in conflict with our perceptivities. So this is where we should go deeper and understand. And probably it's a good diagnostical point. So why I'm not synchronized with that? Because maybe I have some trauma, or maybe because this is something that is dangerous for me from my previous experience. So when we are in synchronicity with ourselves, it means that we understand that our personas are there. However, we know our authenticity as well, so we can remove the masks and we can be in touch with our essential point. Yes, like, for example, the boss at work doesn't need to have the tie at home. Yes, so it's different stories. So you are more in synchronicity with yourself. And actually synchronicity is the only one way. The other word is the healing. The healing process is going only by synchronicity. With what? With your essential self and with the source where you're taking, what is charging you, what is in charge of your own energy. So the self is the central archetype, is the conducting the synchronicity. So,
Any further questions, Your Honor?
We have only 1 minute or 2 minutes left in the podcast.
We have 0 minutes left, my friend. Listen, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, that's fine. I followed your...
Okay.
Okay.
So-
If not, tomorrow night, 7:30. Sign
So
in.
let's conclude.
Okay, yes. We're going to wrap up this wonderful conversation.
We touch many different aspects and subjects, and it looks like it's a bit of mess. However, when we're dealing with the conscious and subconscious mind, it's always the mess.
Yeah. Agreed.
And the truth somewhere between the mess.
Yes.
As Nietzsche said, the superstar is coming from this huge chaos. Yeah. To bring the superstar, or means the consciousness of the mind, we have to deal with our own mess. And it looks like a bit of a scary story. However, once you sort of experience the taste of the self-discovery, you will never betray it, because it's so fascinating. It's a never-ended story. It's better than the serials.
Yeah.
So the path of self-discovery is intriguing. It brings you a lot of challenge, and never makes you boredom. Jung, for me, honestly brought some open, absolutely amazing dimension even for our civilization. Even he passed away a long time ago, and the societies look like still stuck in a Freudian concept of a material world. However, it's like we neglected Jung. So this understanding better, it doesn't mean that we all have to be a psychologist. However, we should use the knowledge to understand ourselves better, our own personality and our own layers, and not to be afraid to be in touch with this layer, because people ask, and then what I will do with that? Something, maybe I was a very bad person, so what will happen? So you will learn how to forgive the bad people, and maybe you will learn how to go deeper and to discover what makes people bad, what makes you bad.
Yeah.
So
And for me, it's even if like you don't go through that process, like what do you want out of your society, and what you want what you want is more peace, more harmony, less crime, less aggravation, then it's very clear that what we need to do is love each other more. As counterintuitive as that sounds, because when people ask me, what if someone did something to your family, would you be able to forgive them? And it probably is, I'm not strong enough to forgive them. I'm not. But institutionally, we should have laws, we should have structures that favor forgiveness and love and these things that make better human beings, not what I feel as an animal when my little pack is hurt.
We're talking about the social values, so it's all the same. What kind of values we bring out?
Yeah. Okay. Listen. Thank you for your time and your openness and your willingness to discuss things. I felt like it was a good kind of exchange of world views.
Yes, of course. So if someone will find it interesting, and maybe for someone it will be helpful to think what to do next.
I feel like we've opened the door to like a vastness out there, which may be intimidating, but one step at a time, and because it is messy and it is quite abstract, and there is a lot of like shifting between technical intuition, and that can be tiring.
Beside of everything, both of us, you and me, we're passing through our own journeys and challenges, and we're just people. So who are doing a lot of mistakes. So I want to ask to forgive me if I touch somebody's sensitive point. So being it as a religion or being it as a system of beliefs or philosophy. So the idea wasn't intentional, but the idea was to discover what is behind of all these values.
I have no worry about that. You come off as a very genuine human being.
No, but still, sort of, I would like to do so. So it's, and if somebody is listening to us, my gratitude and my invitation, welcome for meditation.
All right. Okay. Lydia, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure we'll talk.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank
Absolute
you.
pleasure. And thank you for Mars for hooking it up.
Thank you very much. You're being very, very patient, guys.
All right. Thank you. Good night. You've been
Thank
a
you
wonderful
for all
audience.
the supportive group.
Patreon.com/Romalia.